What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of wow. Restart. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Pigskins and Pinfalls. I'm Dick Burns.
And I'm Bobby Boomerang. We're here to talk everything from the return of Dark Side of the Ring to Jalen Hurts getting paid. Cha-ching.
Nice. I like that one. We're here to talk about everything from Snyder selling the team to CM Punk's return scheme.
Ooh.
Yeah, that last minute, I literally spent the past 5 minutes like trying to think of a better one. The one I had was complete like trash. So, what's going on, Bobby? We got to start off with
real quick. People don't realize how these openings are actually kind of difficult.
They really are, because you always got to think of them being topical and like you're trying to be like punny with everything, and it's just finding that one rhyme, especially like when you're trying to take the biggest news articles and tie them together.
Or when you have one, like you know what you want to do for one half, but then the other one, you're like, how the fuck do I tie that in there? Like,
right. It can be really
tough.
It gets difficult. We got to start off with a little bit of a confession. I've made a huge mistake.
Okay.
I re-downloaded Supercard.
No.
I did, and it's already eating away at all my time. I made the mistake. On the plus side, I'm already... What's that?
I re-downloaded it not too long ago, but I thought it would start me over from the beginning. But
nope, you get everything back.
Yeah, I was like, I'm too far behind. I'm over it. And I deleted it within 5 minutes of downloading it.
Surprisingly, I'm already like, not necessarily like up to date, but I'm at least within season 9. So last time we played was season 6, and now all of those cards are considered legacy. Obsolete. And but no, I re-downloaded, and within like a couple of hours I was already like up into the season 8 ranks, and then like within 2 days I was already back into the season 9 ranks, because all I did is I took all my old cards and just kept feeding them into the new ones, and it was still giving me credit for like all the experience I had and everything. But God knows that was the one biggest time like productivity killer when we were working together.
Yeah.
For all of us.
I wonder if Josh still plays.
I don't know. We'll have to ask him.
I have no idea.
Yeah, but no, I made that mistake. I re-downloaded it, and I hate myself for it because I'm already like sucked right back in.
Don't tell me that, because now I know what I'm doing when we get off the stream. I'm gonna have to take a look at it. I'm gonna have to at least check it out. Fuck.
I created a monster.
Yeah. All right, let's start with football.
Yeah, we always start with football. And we got to talk about the biggest news of the week. We have finally had traction. Dan Snyder is ready to sell the team. There are multiple offers on the table, but the main one that everyone's talking about, obviously, there is an offer that has been agreed upon to this day for the two sides. Dan Snyder and what's his name? Harris. I forgot to put his first name. Josh Harris. The group that's being led by Josh Harris. That of course he's got the capital for that. All the different other teams he's got part ownership in.
76ers and the New Jersey Devils.
Yeah.
Also, Magic Johnson is part of that group.
Also, and this is one of the things I want to talk about too. He already has, I think it's like a minor stake in the Steelers. I think it is. How is that going to work if he buys the team? Or is he going to have to sell his stake in the Steelers, or is he allowed to have ownership in both?
So I don't know if it's a minority stake in the Steelers and the majority in the Commanders. I don't know if that matters. I would assume he has to sell his stake in the Steelers, but maybe because it's minority principle, he'd be okay. But I don't know.
I don't know. That's something that that's
way
way
above
over
our
our
pay
heads. way outside of our pay grades. But the agreement is in place that it's gonna sell for $6 billion, with a B, and that's gonna be the most that any team has sold for in sports history, I believe.
Ever, at least definitely NFL. I saw a list, and it was like what each team was, what was paid for each team the last time it was sold. And 32 was the Packers, because it said NA, because the Packers are owned.
I saw that same list, and then like 31 was the Bears at $100.
$100, bro.
Well, think about what year that happened. That was probably a long ass time ago. That was probably like back in like the 20s and 30s when $100 actually meant something.
Right. And adjusted for inflation, who knows what that would even be worth.
Exactly.
But I
So
mean, still significantly less than 6 billion. But
exactly. I
I
mean,
am sure that Commanders fans are rejoicing. I saw a picture of somebody put a sign on 95 that had the old Redskin logo and said "Buy Dan" on it, BYE, not BUY. But "Buy Dan," and I know, a lot of the people from up where I'm from and where you live, like a lot of our friends were Commanders fans.
mhm.
Um,
I mean,
I know,
I live here in DC, so
right,
I feel it. I know.
and right, and I know like the only one that I've talked to recently is our buddy Adam,
Hmm.
and he's over the moon because now he can buy an updated jersey.
The real
Because for
question
the
is, are
past,
they going to change their name again, or are they going to stick with Commanders?
I don't know, man. I have no idea about that one, but
Hmm.
for the longest time, our friend Adam said he refused to put any money towards Washington because he didn't want Dan Snyder. That's why he hasn't been to a game
Hmm.
in 10 years. His most current jersey, I believe, is a Sean Taylor jersey.
Yeah.
And it's not one that he bought retroactively. Like, I'm pretty sure he bought that when Sean Taylor was still playing.
Hmm.
Um, and I know a lot of people like that, especially in the DMV area.
Yeah, I agree, and I know that there was. I want to see if I can pull it up. There was an article that was recently put out where it was talking about what are the biggest things that the new leadership needs to take care of, with it from all the way from quarterback to the team culture. Honestly, if you ask me, the first thing that needs to be changed is that fucking Sean Taylor statue. That's the first thing that
Sean
needs to be
Taylor,
fixed.
the field, the stadium itself,
Mm-hmm.
the
Agreed.
culture behind.
Exactly.
I mean, but I also
There's so many
feel
things that need
like
to be
getting a
changed.
new owner automatically changes the culture.
Oh, of course. Just getting rid of Dan Snyder alone is your first step to improving the culture
Yeah,
immediately. We do
absolutely.
have to note as well. It's obviously not official. It needs to go to the entire league for approval. Goodell's gonna have to approve it. They're gonna need a yes vote from three-quarters of the
Thirds,
teams.
3/4.
Three-quarters.
Okay.
24 of the 32 need to approve. I don't foresee anybody stepping in the way of this though. I don't
I
foresee
would.
that happening at all.
If we found out that it was a unanimous decision, I would not be surprised.
Exactly. Um, I do want to point out, however, local news, WUSA 9 out here, the CBS outlet here in DC. There was I think it was like Thursday or Friday night. I saw a news article that said that there's still another buyer in play. Now, I don't know the truth behind this, but I do want to at least acknowledge it because it did come from it came from local news. Like, this isn't just
BS,
some
yeah.
Joe Schmo on the side of the road. Like, this
Right.
is from actual news. So they released that they are claiming that the Commanders are still considering a second bid for DC from a DC native named Brian Davis. He's made an offer to buy the team for $7 billion cash in hand. He says that it would be $1 million up front within the first of the first bill up front within the first 24 hours, and then within the week he would pay the remaining $6 billion.
That's insane.
I am taking that with the biggest grain of salt. I do
Same.
not believe
That
it.
sounds
It
something
sounds,
fishy.
yeah, it sounds really sus.
Yeah.
So I don't know how I feel about that. Um,
But I think that we are officially at the point now where the 2023 season, the Commanders will have a new owner.
oh, absolutely.
At the start of at opening kickoff weekend, that first weekend or second weekend of September, there will be a new owner in Washington.
Okay. Do you think they stick with Ron Rivera after all
Yes.
the issues that
Yes.
they quote unquote had with Rivera last year? Isn't
I
his contract
think
up this year too? Well,
I
wasn't
believe
it
it's
up?
up at the end of this year.
Okay.
It's upcoming year. But I think that since Rivera has such a good rapport
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of the players like him and all that, I think that they hold on to him for one more year, see how this year goes, and then make a decision on whether they want to do a whole new head coaching shit. But yeah, I don't see them letting go of Riverboat.
Yeah. I mean, again, me being a Carolina fan, I have a lot of respect for Riverboat Ron. He did the wonders that he did for us, taking us to the Super Bowl and everything, really changing turning our team around after all those years. I mean,
Yeah.
he was the biggest reason we had our big turnaround in the 2010s.
Hmm.
Actually, I think it's far back. What year did he get hired? Wasn't it like 2010, 2011?
I believe so.
It was around then.
I
I
believe
have to
so.
go back and look, but um, yeah, it's he does have. I mean, he has a good history. He's got a good rapport with a lot of people. Again, he's also a long stay. He made his name as part of that '85 Bears squad.
Yep.
So I mean, he's a defensive mind, like an amazing defensive mind. Um, he's got a great supporting cast. I mean, you got to think with them having picked up Eric Bieniemy as their new OC. I think that makes a lot of
Also,
difference.
don't forget that Ron Rivera was on the '85 Bears.
I just said that.
Oh, I did not hear you. I'm sorry.
Just tuned me out.
I'm
I
reading.
just said that. I was like,
I'm
he made
reading.
his name on the
Yes.
'85 Bears team.
January 11th, 2011 was when he was hired by Carolina.
That's what I thought. Because
Sorry.
I believe that was before him. Correct me if I'm wrong. I got to remember my own team here. I believe it was John Fox before that, who then went on to Chicago. Ironically enough, full circle.
Yep.
um, the other big news out of the NFL. Let's talk about this because this broke just what today, I believe,
This morning,
this morning. Jalen Hurts. I'll let you take this one.
man got paid.
Yes, he did.
Paid. 5 years, $255 million. That equals 51 mil per year with 179.3,
Yeah.
179.3 fully guaranteed.
Yep.
His agent wins the internet for the day because back in January when the whole back in January when he was balling out and everything and the Eagles were doing so well,
Mm-hmm.
she tweeted, "Anyone know where to get a Brinks truck?" Today she retweeted it, tweeted it. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know Twitter. Quote tweeted it and then said, never mind, found one." Hey,
Let's go. I
so
hadn't seen
I
that
mean,
one, but
Jalen Hurts got paid,
yes, he
man.
did, and he
51
deserves
mil a
every penny of
year.
it.
I agree. Honestly, so I was talking about it with a buddy at work who's a massive Eagles fan, and he goes, "I think that Jalen Hurts could have and probably should have gotten more." He also said, he goes, "Howie Roseman, this proves that Howie Roseman is an excellent negotiator."
Mm-hmm.
He was like, my buddy Jansen said, "I'm willing to bet that Howie Roseman said, you take this deal and I'll get you more weapons so we can make another run. Or I'll pay you what I think you're worth. Look forward to missing the playoffs for a few years."
I think that's a great way to put it, honestly. And I don't know if we mentioned it, but again, I don't know if we mentioned it yet, but let's not discount the fact that this means that Jalen Hurts is now the highest paid player in NFL history.
He
Now,
surpassed Patrick Mahomes.
hmm now I do, however, while I was right before we started recording, we're recording this. We're doing a rare Monday night recording because you're flying up here tomorrow, so that's it's we're making things happen. But I want to point out that right before we went on the air, I was actually walking the dog, and I was reading an article by Jeffrey Chadia, who of course is a beat writer for the NFL, NFL.com, ESPN. He writes for all of them. He regularly covers the NFC South, so I'm very familiar with his work. He puts out an article that says 5 major takeaways from Jalen Hurts' mega extension. And I just wanted to go over these points. I haven't even finished reading the article yet, but right out the
Okay.
back, number one that he puts up, negotiations between Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens just got a lot harder. And you can't disagree with that. And we have some Lamar news
Yeah,
after
yeah.
that here in a minute. So we'll come back to that for sure. But that's true. This is definitely going to make contract talks with Lamar a lot more difficult because then now we're just throwing the numbers around. However, I think that does help the NFL side of the house because this was not a fully guaranteed contract. So that's that idea of was Deshaun
Majority
Watson
guaranteed. Majority guaranteed, but not
majority?
fully guaranteed.
But I mean, like most contracts like that are normally majority guaranteed. So it's reasonable that he's getting like what is it, like 70% of that guaranteed. I can agree
Do
with
the
that.
math real quick.
It's about 70 to 70. It's somewhere like 72 if I'm doing the math right in my head.
70.19.
Yeah. So
Yes.
70% of that guaranteed. I mean, that's about right. Um, and I can live with that. I can agree with that.
Hmm.
Um, but again, like the big discussion we've been talking about with Lamar's contract situation, it's he wants fully guaranteed because Deshaun got it, and everyone's questioning is that the outlier or is that the new normal? Well, if this Jalen Hurts contract has anything to say, it's continuing to be an outlier. I mean, still looks good on Lamar because that means it's more money that he can put himself up for. But
Hmm.
like, what was it? 180 was they were trying to offer him before this.
I believe so.
Yeah, this is definitely putting more in his name for that. Number two, Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow should be thrilled because
Oh
they're
yeah,
coming up on contracts as well, and
especially Joe Burrow.
yeah, and they're in that same field, like
Hmm.
that same tier is what I'm looking for here. They're in that same tier quarterback play that and with them coming up on contracted sessions themselves, that's going to look really good for them. It's going to
I was
help.
gonna save this for later,
Hmm.
but Vegas opened up betting odds on the 2023 NFL MVP.
Hmm.
It is not Patrick Mahomes. Joe Burrow is the current betting favorite to win MVP this year.
Well, this is a contract year for Burrow, isn't it?
Hmm?
Watch him ball out.
But yeah,
Watch him ball out. Number three, we already talked about this. Howie Roseman's gamble paid off.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, Number four, one more win for dual threat quarterbacks everywhere.
Hmm.
Obviously, because hey, you're getting paid. They're naming people like Kyler Murray, Justin Fields, um, Anthony Richardson this year, wherever he goes. That'll be something. And the Eagles are officially on the clock. If they don't make it, and I can agree with that. If they don't make it happen within the next couple of years, then that contract's gonna look really bad
Here's your,
in comparison.
here's your 5 year window. The
Yep,
5 year extension you just signed Jalen Hurts to.
yep.
There's your window.
You have 5 years to get another ring. After
Yep.
that, if that doesn't happen, then that possible. I mean, that's Howie Roseman's job at that point, and like a
Hmm.
lot of the staff on that team. If they can't make it happen within the next 5 years, then that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Let's
Got a
talk.
couple.
Let's talk Lamar real quick though, because let's go back into that real quick. So, um, I was reading an article by Sports Illustrated this weekend. Michael Lombardi wrote, well, he was claiming that Lamar has stated that the Ravens securing DeAndre Hopkins is a necessity before entering further contract talks. This is blowing everyone's assumptions about Lamar's contract talks out the water because everyone's like, "Oh, what are we gonna do about the money and this, that, and the other?" No, Lamar, as it turns out, he was a big linchpin on what got OBJ to sign last week,
Yep.
and he's actively clamoring for them to pick up DeAndre as well. He wants the pieces in place before he starts talking contract. I think it's a good move.
I don't hate it. However, let's face facts. When it comes to Lamar, the bottom line is been about or has been about the money.
Hmm.
And if you're paying OBJ 18, DeAndre Hopkins is due for 19.4. So that's $40 million that
Not to
you're not getting.
not to mention that DeAndre's big deal about leaving Arizona is that he wants to get paid more.
Correct.
That's a lot to do with it. So
Correct. So I mean,
this could
I
backfire.
also
This could
I
very
also
well
think
backfire.
I think the word necessity is the most important word in that because that's big.
It is.
Like necessity, like you're telling me it's a need, not a
Hmm.
want. I would like to play with DeAndre Hopkins. Like no, I need him on our team, or I'm not even talking about like that's very telling.
Rashad Bateman is probably cursing up a storm right now.
I, what they
instantly dropping down from a wide receiver 1 to a wide receiver 3. Well, now let's not go that far because again, OBJ is unproven. Him being out of the game for a while, he's a little bit unproven.
Yeah.
There's no telling what 2023 OBJ play will look like until we see it.
I mean, I think OBJ would be a solid 3. A solid 3.
As your slot? I could see that actually.
Yeah.
OBJ in the slot? Yeah. Absolutely. And then you have Rashad Bateman and DeAndre Hopkins on the outside?
Again, damn near $40 million going to your 2 wide receivers.
Mm-hmm. Also, that's another thing too. If you're paying OBJ $18 million to be a slot, 1
year, from the words of Breezy and Austin Creed, prove yourself deal.
Yeah.
But let's look at that from the flip side real quick.
Okay.
DeAndre Hopkins. If I'm DeAndre Hopkins, I'm saying I'm not going to Baltimore unless you sign Lamar.
Ooh. They force the hand.
And Lamar is sitting here saying, well, I'm not talking contracts unless you get D-Hop. Well, if I'm D-Hop, I'm not going to, no disrespect to Tyler Huntley, but if I'm D-Hop, I'm not going to Baltimore to play with him.
No. Absolutely not. You're not making all these big names. You are not making these big of deals just to pick up, just for them to play with their Tyler Huntley. If anything, you're hunting for a QB in the draft, in a QB heavy draft class.
Which again, at that point, if I'm D-Hop, I'll stay with Kyler.
True. Yeah.
At that point, and yes, Kyler's hurt, and he's probably not going to play week 1. We know that, but I'm not leaving Arizona. Kyler, you and I can both agree Kyler Murray is the top half of the NFL.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. I'm not leaving that to go play with bottom third of the NFL.
I can agree. Yeah, no, that's also a fair statement because, again, with as late as Baltimore will be picking, unless they trade up, which they don't really have the capital to be trading up, who you're probably, at best, you're getting Hendon Hooker.
Yeah.
At best.
That might even be a reach.
Yeah, that's a hell of a reach. What is Baltimore's pick? Do we know? I know we said we were going to do mock drafts this week. I don't think we have time for that because we got fucking minor leagues this week. God. I even called it. I was just like, man, we're going to have the XFL. We got the playoff race there. We've got the USFL starting up. We'll get to that because I legitimately sat down and watched the highlights. I did it. I hate myself for it. I'm burnt out on minor league football, but I watched it.
Ravens have picked 22.
Yeah, I doubt Hendon Hooker drops that far because there's a lot of talk right now that Hendon Hooker gets picked up by New England at 14.
I mean, this whole this Lamar situation, this Baltimore situation is just absolutely never ending.
It's a lot of people making demands and not being willing to meet in the middle.
I don't think there has been a week since this is what, episode 12 or 13 for
12,
us?
I believe.
I don't think there's been a week we haven't talked about Lamar.
Except for maybe weeks 2 and 3. Those first couple of weeks, maybe we didn't talk about Lamar. Ever since the season
football
ended,
was still on. Because football was still on.
We were still in playoff football at the time.
Yes.
And honestly, even back then, the contract issues were starting even back then. They were ongoing all last season.
I mean, it's literally never ending. And again, I feel like there's so many moving pieces and parts to all of it. D-Hop, Lamar wants D-Hop. If I'm D-Hop, this is pure speculation on my part, but if I'm D-Hop, I want Lamar. Mm-hmm. But if I know that Lamar's not coming back, I'm not going.
Let's not forget again also that it was before that, it was Lamar wants OBJ. Whereas everyone thought, why are they doing this? No, Lamar wanted OBJ. So, I don't know, man.
As we will continue to cover it as long as news comes out about it. That's what we've done the past at least 10 weeks. So we're not going to stop now. We're going to ride this till the fucking wheels fall off.
Yep, I mean, it's what we're here for. It's what everybody continuously, even when we were still doing live streams, we had people coming in asking about the Lamar situation while we had already covered the Lamar situation. That's why we had to stop doing live streams.
Doing live streams.
This is exactly why we stopped doing live streams, because we were like, we're not even big enough yet. Let's not worry about that. We're crashing the system just trying to make this thing work.
Let's finish up with a couple free agency notes here before we get into the minor league football. The Miami Dolphins signed Chosen Anderson, formerly known as Robbie Anderson. You know him well from his time in Carolina.
Unfortunately.
The Dolphins, without a doubt, have the fastest wide receiver room in the NFL right now.
Absolutely.
Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and now Chosen Anderson.
I may still think he's a bit of a scrub, but I can't deny his speed.
He might not catch every pass thrown his way, but he's going to burn you off the line.
And sometimes that's all you need is somebody to be the guy that burns you off the line, twists up your secondary, so that way one of the other players gets the catch.
You send him on a streak, you have the corner and the safety bail out to cover Chosen, then you hit Tyreek or Jalen Waddle on a cross across the middle. Now your closest person is a corner or safety 30 yards downfield with a blocker in Chosen Anderson.
Chosen Anderson is eating so much shade right now, and I don't care.
Quarterback Trace McSorley signs with the Patriots. For those of you who don't know, Trace McSorley is from Ashburn, which is where Rich and I met. Well, technically we met in Sterling, but we met in the same
in the Northern
county.
Virginia area. He is Northern Virginia royalty.
Absolutely. He won multiple state championships with the local high school there in Briar Woods. He also went to my favorite college football program in Penn State. And for those of you who don't know, he has a fire YouTube song.
We are not listening to the song. I'm not doing that.
Should, but we won't, only because it's 10:30 at night. But for those of you that enjoy a little bit of the hip-hop music, type in Trace McSorley rap song. It's fucking great.
It's not that great.
It is.
I swear.
Talked about Jalen Hurts. I'll let you... real quick, the Cardinals, Buda Baker from the Cardinals requested a trade. The Cardinals have denied this trade.
They're already having to deal with the Deandre Hopkins situation. That's probably why. It's just like, look, we only have time to deal with one trade situation right now. We don't have time to deal with yours just yet.
And
then I do want to note also this. I believe this happened earlier.
J.J. Watt on the Cardinals?
He retired though.
Yes, so that's my point.
Yeah.
That's my point. J.J. Watt's gone. DeAndre Hopkins probably gone. Kyler Murray hurt. You're not letting Buda Baker go.
No way. And then I believe this news also broke either this morning or yesterday. Bryce Young has actually canceled all his future pre-draft visits with all the other teams. He met with the Panthers. He met with the Texans. This pretty much guarantees he's going in the first two picks, which that's pretty much where everybody's looking at right now. So this isn't a surprise to anybody.
I do agree with you. However, you hear all the time of, especially after the fact, like after players get drafted and they're in the league for a few years, you hear all the time how people are like, I thought for sure I was going to such and such team. That pick comes up and they picked a different player at my position, and now that led me to being on this team.
I mean, at the same time, though, you're being projected as the number one draft pick, and you met with the top two picks.
Yes, that's the difference here, is that there's probably like a 2% chance of him not going one or two. So it does make sense for his aspect of his first of all, his position. He's in a quarterback-heavy draft, and the top of the draft order this year is all quarterback-needy teams, mostly quarterback-needy teams. But I did just want to throw that out there that you do hear stories. That's how players drop. That's how players slide in the draft. But I don't think Bryce Young has to worry about that.
So we actually, I put a bunch of our miscellaneous news at the bottom, and we're going to call the fun facts section. But I do want to bring this back up at the moment. Right now, there is very good possibility that we're going to see history, because the last time we saw 4 quarterbacks go in the top 10 in the draft was 2018. The 2018 draft class, of course, was very, very heavy on quarterbacks. Let me see. 2018 draft, because I had it looked up and then I completely forgot the names. So
Carson Wentz, Jared Goff.
that wasn't 18.
16.
It was Baker at 1, Sam Darnold
Right.
at 3, Josh Allen at 7, and Josh Rosen at 10.
Josh Rosen, man.
Josh
Wow.
Rosen, man. I know. What a drop off. That was also the first time 4 quarterbacks went in the top 10 since the 1940s. There is a very, very good possibility that we could see the first 4 picks being quarterbacks, because there's still a lot of people predicting that someone's going to trade up to 3 for a quarterback. There's a lot of talk about that still, because you've got Carolina at 1, obviously going to take a quarterback. You've got Houston at 2, obviously going to take a quarterback. You've got the Colts at 4, obviously going to take a quarterback. Somebody could trade up to 3 to beat out Indianapolis, or Indy could trade up for the 3 just to make sure to be safe. Either way, that's your top 3 picks being quarterbacks. That's history in itself.
And then looking at pick number 5, the Seahawks, I mean, do you think Geno Smith is their long-term answer? Because I don't.
They have other needs. They have many other needs that they need to address before they think about that.
I mean, honestly, man,
think about that big contract that Geno just got. Isn't it 3 years?
Your first 9 picks, first 8 picks, realistically, if they took a quarterback, it would make some sense you could spin it for all 8. Mm-hmm. The Panthers, absolutely. The Texans, absolutely. The Cardinals, maybe they're not sold on Kyler. The Colts, absolutely. The Seahawks, maybe they're not sold on Geno. The Lions, maybe they're not sold on Goff. The Raiders, is Jimmy G your long-term answer? And the Falcons.
Yeah. And let's not forget that we're even still looking, again, we were just talking about how Hendon Hooker is projected right now to go at number 14 to the Patriots. That's your
Titans
5th,
at 11.
That's your 5th quarterback off the board is Hendon Hooker.
Yeah.
And he's already being projected to be a top 15 pick. That tells you something about the strength of this quarterback class.
Yeah. I mean, you got the Titans at 11, the Texans again at 12, Patriots at 14, and then the rest of the way down. I mean, the next, maybe the Bucks draft a quarterback at 19, maybe the Ravens at 22, but by this point, I think your first round caliber quarterbacks are all gone.
Yeah, they're going to be focusing more on bigger needs, and then they'll look towards the later rounds to look for a quarterback.
Yeah.
I'm curious. Let's pop to the Google machine real quick. I'm gonna go screen share real quick. Let me see if I can look up quarterbacks in the 2023 draft class and just see if we can get a list. Here's the top list right here. Bryce Young at 1, Will Levis at 2, C.J. Stroud 3, Anthony Richardson 4, Tanner McKee from Stanford. There's a name that a lot of people haven't been talking about as much. You've got Dorian Thompson-Robinson coming out of UCLA. You've got Jake Haener coming from Fresno State. Clayton Tune from Houston. And then Stetson Bennett. I forgot he's part of this class too.
He ain't going for round 1.
No, but he's still part of that. He's still part of a stacked quarterback class.
Yeah.
He's not a top 10 quarterback, obviously. Like a top 10 pick quarterback. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see Stetson Bennett go in like the 4th or the 5th round. I wouldn't be surprised if he's either a late day 2, early day 3 pick.
This website I have here has Hendon Hooker listed as the 3rd best quarterback option ahead of Levis and Richardson.
I'm on Pro Football Focus, I think.
So, I'm on NFL Draft Buzz.
Yeah. I mean, I literally, all I did was I typed in 2020 quarterbacks in the 2023 draft class and hit the first one.
Max Duggan is in this draft class.
There's
from
a
TCU.
lot. So, and again, like how we're saying, this could be history because in 2018, when they were talking about that draft class, that was 11 quarterbacks that were taken in that draft.
Oh, 2 weeks away.
2 weeks. I'll be so glad when it's... God, can you imagine how bad that week's going to be for us? We're going to be talking freaking XFL playoffs, USFL week 3 at that point, the NFL draft, the WWE draft, which also Fightful Select noted that it was deliberately scheduled to have the WWE draft be at the same time as the NFL draft.
Makes sense.
Makes sense. Yeah. But still, that's going to be a busy week for us.
And won't we have to make backlash predictions?
I think that'll be the week after. No, it
I
might be that week actually. Well, it might actually be that week. You're right.
Because the
God,
draft is the 27th, 28th, and 29th, and then that following Tuesday is May 2nd.
which would be in time for the May
Ooh.
6th PLE.
We're gonna have to do we're gonna have to do another Monday on that week.
Yeah.
Um,
All right, we can talk about that later. Well, we can talk about that off the screen.
but anyway, yeah. So we're gonna have all of that plus predictions for Backlash, plus whatever the hell happens with everything else in the wrestling news that we haven't even talked about yet today.
And all the rest of the football news that may happen. There's no telling.
That is everything that we have from the NFL. But we're not done with football.
Oh God, no! Because we are now officially
8 football games to talk about.
not just it's 2 minor leagues worth of football that we talk. Because again, we had week 9 of the XFL. We have playoff stuff that we have to talk about. There's a lot of playoff implications out of this week, and then we still have to talk about the debut of the USFL this week. And I've got some notes on that too. So. I watched a lot of football on YouTube, football highlights on YouTube this week. I didn't have time to watch all the games. I had a pretty busy weekend myself, so like I barely even got a time to watch anything. But like I missed SmackDown last week because I was at a concert.
I will help lighten the load. I will help lighten the load by watching USFL this weekend. I was also at work all week.
You have fun with that. Because already I can tell which one I prefer. I mean, I've been our XFL guy all season so far, so let's just go into it.
Take it away.
Yeah,
Jacksonville or Vegas and Houston.
Yeah, so our first game, we had the Vegas Vipers at the Houston Roughnecks. So Houston, again, they're still playing for, they were, going into this game, they were still playing for making sure they have the playoff game. They're locked for the playoffs. The only ones in the South to be locked, but they were trying to secure that home field advantage. And you're doing it against Vegas, who, again, this season has been pretty bad. You'd think it would be an easy game. No, this actually went down to the wire for quite a bit. Houston may have the worst passing offense in the league. So we get Brandon Silvers back this week. Or I think he came back last week. Either way, he comes in this week, throws 16 for 27, 105 yards, 2 picks. None of his receivers broke 30 yards. Max Borghi led the team in rushing with only 74 yards and a touchdown. That's pretty good. That's not bad. And then you had Bryson Allen that put up another 42 and another touchdown. So their rushing game is there, but the passing game, it needs a lot of work. Brandon Silvers is not blowing anybody away. I mean, he had a great run at the early half of the season. Since he came back from injury that one week, he just hasn't been good. I'm sorry. And we saw what happened last week with Nick Tiano, so what can you do? On the other hand, that defense still looks great. 2 fumble recovery touchdowns. That's amazing in itself. Amazing.
I love the scoop and score.
Everybody loves a nice, good scoop and score, and they had 2 of them. On the other side of the ball, you had Jalen McClendon. Again, he came in past couple weeks. He's really trying to help turn Vegas around. 27 for 37, 249 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had another 41 yards on the ground. He did have a fumble, but I mean, what can you do in a moment like that? Amazing in itself. Also, on that note, CJ Avery is leading the league with 3 fumble recoveries by himself.
That's awesome.
He had another one this week. Amazing. And I want to point this out because this is something that I've noticed the entire season. Rod Woodson is quite possibly the most hilarious person to listen to on the mic up for coaching. This man talks so much shit during the games. He sits here and shit talks the refs like fucking crazy, and it's so entertaining. That being said, for all the work that they're putting into the season, the Vegas, again, they were their own worst enemy. A lot of bad play calling, a lot of bad penalties. It's just a lot of poor decision making. This killed them again, and that's been the story all season. Has been them being their own worst enemy. Houston, they get the win, 28-21. They've locked in home field advantage. Just think about that.
A 6-3 record.
A 6-3 record. And we're gonna talk 6-3 records here in a minute. But 6-3 record, that's what's locking in your number 1 seed for your division. Which again,
regardless of what happens this week.
Regardless. That's it. They could lose next week and still come out 6-4 and be leading and have a home playoff game, which is ridiculous, honestly. Let's go to Orlando at San Antonio. Another close game, 25-23. This game for the Brahmas was must win. They had to win this game. Thankfully, they had to get into Orlando, who's still putting things together. But again, I've been really high on Orlando. Unfortunately,
the record does not reflect that.
No. Not only that, but we've been singing the praises of Quentin Dormady the past 2 weeks. The Magic's gone. The Magic was gone this week. Man put up 9 for 17, 47 yards, a touchdown, and a pick six. Not just an interception, a pick six.
Yeah.
They brought in Deandre Francois late in the game. He put up another 20 yards and a touchdown of his own. Nothing spectacular. He was like a gadget player, kind of like how De'Aaron King has been for DC. But it's just a lot of uncertainty. Meanwhile, just last week, we were talking all this about how San Diego needs to figure things out in the quarterback room. Jack Cohn can't turn it around this week. 25 for 31, 302 yards, another touchdown through the air. That was some good work there.
300 yards is not easy, no matter what level of football you play at.
And we had a lot of 300-yard passers this week in both leagues, so impressive in itself. We've been saying also Orlando really needs help for Dormady. We finally got that out of an amazing performance from Devin Darrington. He puts up 133 yards on the ground and a touchdown. Man's put in work. He's got some wheels on him, let me tell you. We also saw another amazing punt fake go for a long bomb of a pass, because Mac Brown just drops a dime to KD Cannon, takes it 69 yards up the sideline. Nice. And honestly, that actually led to what ended up giving the Devin Darrington 1-yard touchdown run. Like he pounded it in. I mean, you get into the red zone, you kind of have to at that point, especially when you're on the one. Like it's great.
Thank you, Johnny Hecker, for teaching all these punters that they can be more than just a leg.
Right. Speaking of just a leg, John Parker Romo, our new favorite kicker in the league. 2 more field goals on the season. He's now at a league best 15 of 16. He's only missed 1 kick all season. Yeah, no, it's great for him. Jaquez Patrick for San Antonio. The rushing game, still reliable. He did have a fumble, but again, he put up 20 rushes for 80 yards and a touchdown. He also had 50 yards receiving. 130 yards from scrimmage. That's impressive.
Good day at the office.
Yeah. So let's talk the playoffs. Again, San Antonio needed this in order to stay in the playoff hunt. Also to mention, this was San Antonio's first home win of the season.
Wow.
It's pretty bad.
Wow.
San Antonio is 3-6 and still in the playoff hunt. This is what they need, though. They needed the Renegades to lose to DC this week, which we'll get to that here in a second. They also need the Renegades to lose next week against, I think it's Houston they play next week, which is possible. But they also have to beat DC next week.
Now, keep in mind, DC has nothing to play for.
No, and they've already locked up everything. They locked up this week, and that actually brings us to the Arlington DC game. Arlington playing at the Defenders. I also have to note, Again, this city loves the Defenders. We are all about it. A
Mhm.
sold out Audi Field. Sold the
That's
house out.
when was the last time DC United did that?
Actually, DC United does it not necessarily all the time, but they've had some sellout games before.
Okay.
And
That's
definitely, though, when was the last time the Commanders had a sellout game, though?
the 90s.
It,
I'm willing to bet.
it has to be. Maybe early 2000s. Maybe.
Talk
Either,
to us about the. I'll look that up while you talk to us about the.
so, I give credit where credit is due. Arlington actually started the game really well. Um, but it also started with them getting to the 1 yard line and then DC getting 2 stops in a row on the 1 yard line. The Defender defense is amazing. They are, again, this is the most complete team in the XFL. It's not just me bragging about my team, it's legitimately, they are the most complete team in this league. And the defense definitely showed that. First drive, on the other side of the ball, though, I have to give credit where credit is due. Arlington's defense just as good. They had the run game shut down. Abram Smith only picked up 27 yards. That's pretty pedestrian for him in comparison. Um, Luis Perez, he's got a lot to prove this season, and he proved it today. You got to think he was traded midseason. He had to fight for the starting position when he got to Arlington, like figure that whole thing out. He comes out this week, goes 31 for 41, 335 yards and a touchdown. That's impressive numbers. But again, to talk about the DC defense, we just talked about him last week. Welcome to the XFL, DJ Swearinger. Man's put up a pick six. First game. Let's go.
Mm-hmm.
I have it here. This is the way I wrote it. DC offense continues to move the chains like it's surgical. Teamu puts up, he goes 14 for 20, 188 yards. Not that high of a number, but again, if your team's putting in the work, then do you really need it? Has 2 touchdowns and an interception. De'Aaron King, he's been mostly that gadget quarterback all season. He got a lot more playing time today, this week. He went 6 for 9 himself. He threw for 76 yards and a touchdown and an interception himself. They were really like spreading the ball around. They were really like making it to where like you could not guess what they're gonna do next. And that's pretty much the story of how this DC team is running. Joe Powell for the Renegades on their defense, he almost had a pick six himself. I saw what was quite possibly the stupidest block in the back play I've ever seen. Shakur, freaking, what did I have? Shakur Brown, he's running, he's helping, like, he's right alongside Joe Powell as Joe Powell's returning it back. And then around, like, the 15, 20-yard line, he just sits down. I don't know if he slips, whatever it was, but he just sits down, and the defender actually trips over him. It ends up being a block in the back. They call the penalty right there. Pick six gets called back. That pick six could have won the game for Arlington. That could have won the game. Could have gave DC their second loss. Didn't though.
Did not.
I will say that the fourth quarter was all Arlington. 17 unanswered points was amazing. There was a pass interference on the 4th down at the 1-yard line that saved Arlington's run at one point, and that gave them a fresh set of downs. And that's where they scored the game-tying touchdown. Josh Hammond, receiver for the Defenders, gets my game ball this week. This man put in work. He had 5 catches, 74 yards, a touchdown plus he had the game-winning score in overtime. Of course, the overtime rules, opportunities from the 5-yard line. He had the game-winning catch. DC is now 8-1. They've clinched home field advantage. And I wouldn't be surprised if they sell the house out again next week. I might have to scrounge up money for that game. I might have to.
You're gonna go. You should go now before playoff tickets because those are gonna be more expensive.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. Is that the next game that's going to be played at that team? I mean, at Audi Field is going to be that playoff game. That's the
Oh,
because
they're not home. Not
no,
home for week 10.
nope. Next
Oh,
week we're playing at at San Antonio. Well, at least we know San Antonio wasn't good at home though. So
true.
sorry. Now let's talk about the game that we were really keeping our eye on this week because we were talking
Mm-hmm.
about it last week. Seattle versus St. Louis. This is for that number 2 spot in the North, and I actually got to watch part of this game live while I was home for a little bit on Sunday. I had a little bit of time while I was running around doing things, and I threw it on for about an hour while I was working on notes and stuff. And I gotta be honest, man, your boy Danucci,
Danucci
good old Danucci, he put in the work.
balling, dude.
He balled out. Uh, 21 for 31, 260 yards, 2 touchdowns, an interception in the end zone. I watched that interception. I saw that interception as well. It was actually a really beautiful interception. It snatched it right out of Josh Gordon's hands in the end zone.
Could have easily been a touchdown.
Could have very easily been a touchdown. It happens. We see that all the time in NFL, every other league. It happens. Good. You can't hate on good defensive play. And again, St. Louis, we've been talking about their defense all season. They've got a great defense, and that they definitely put in the work. We also need to point out that Danucci also had 38 yards and a 3rd touchdown on the ground.
Yep.
Did you see the video of him postering that defender?
He did.
Just slammed right into him right at the goal line. Just like, sit down, little boy. McCarron returned under the center. Honestly, kind of mediocre. 18 for 32, 186 yards and a touchdown. He threw 2 picks though.
It's not the way to win.
Nope. Neither is your rushing attack. When you have one of your receivers running sweeps and gets 37 yards and leads your team in rushing, when your RB1, your quote-unquote RB1 in Brian Hill, only puts up 11 yards, at that point, it's not even just good defense. That's just terrible play. I'm sorry, you're not going to win in the playoffs like that.
No.
St. Louis, they had a great start to the season, but it looks like they're melting down. Looking at the other side of the ball, of course, we mentioned how good Danucci's been on passing this season. With that comes great receiving play. Yes, he spread the ball around, but we got to give props to Jacquor Pearson. He now leads the league in receptions and yards. 57 reception or 50, what is it? I have it here. Yeah, 57 receptions, 628 yards. It's well above everybody else. I think Cody Latimer has like 40 less. It's 588 yards as a tight end.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and again, Orlando's passing game was not there this year. I mean, this week. Wow, words. Donnie Hagman nails a 54-yard field goal like it was nothing.
Drilled it.
Straight up.
This game was on while I was at work, so I got to catch clips like looking up periodically, and he drilled that.
It was a beautiful kick right down the middle for the 54-yard line. So, or 54 yards. So, props to him. I think he's up there. I think he's. Let me pull up the stats real quick. I had it pulled up earlier when I was looking at up the stats for John Parker Romo. Let's see. He is 11 for 16, but he also has the record right now for the longest field goal in 59 yards. That was the other thing I wanted to note of him. He doesn't, again, his percentage right now isn't good, but you got to give him credit. He's got the league leading 59-yard field goal. Dominic Eberle missed one of his 2 kicks. It was a 52-yarder. It just went barely wide left. That's the only thing that's keeping him from being tied with Parker Romo for the best kicker in the league, because now he's 14 and 16. Let's talk playoff situations, because at the end of the day, as we've pointed out, this was all Seattle. This game was all Seattle, not even a question. Both teams are now 6-3. Now, next week, here's our matchups. Both of them have home games. St. Louis is playing Orlando. Seattle's playing Vegas. Both the bottoms of their division. It's very likely both teams win. Dean Blandino, of course, has been the executive VP of officiating for the XFL this season. He broke it down at the end of the game. He's like, look, it's probably going to come down to the fourth tiebreaker, which
Which
in this case is going to be the strength of the offense and defensive like rankings. So Seattle winning by 18 really does a lot to help when you consider that in week 2 St. Louis won by 2. It looks a lot better that way. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Seattle sneak their way past St. Louis for that number 2 spot. And if that's the case, we're going to get a third matchup. We're going to get a third DC Seattle game, and I'm salivating for that.
I think Seattle deserves it. I mean, obviously,
they
have tiebreakers in place for a reason, but I think if you want the better team in your playoffs, it would be Seattle.
Exactly. Again, like St. Louis may have the better defense, but their offense isn't standing up to the kind of the standards that you need out of your team.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Seattle sneak their way past, and then we have DC versus Seattle at Audi Field on the 30th.
Yeah.
Is it 30th? Yeah, the 30th.
So, coming down to the final week of the XFL regular season, we've gotten some good football from them.
We really have. I was really impressed. I've been really impressed with the XFL.
Yeah.
I think.
And I'm honestly, like, I don't think I've said this on our show before, but I am glad that we have decided to cover it.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you 100% on that one.
You know, having said that, I don't know if I'm going to feel the same way about the USFL.
I don't know either. Let's go ahead and start talking about the USFL. So, week 1 of the USFL. Let's break down some rules here right off the bat. The USFL and these 8 teams actually date back. I just found this out. They date back 4 decades. The original USFL ran from 83 to 85.
Yeah, and the original USFL has produced Hall of Famers in the NFL.
Yeah, so there is a pedigree here. I don't think we saw that this week. So first off, let's address last season. All right, so last season the USFL was it went very under the radar. It's not like how they've been getting the coverage with when you compare the coverage, the USFL has got an exclusive deal with Fox, but XFL just the coverage was everywhere this year, and that says it in itself. Another thing about it too is the way the teams actually play. So 2 teams each have a different home field, have their own home field. So you got I put the Michigan Stars and the Philadelphia Stars. Wow. The Michigan Panthers and the Philadelphia Stars, they play at Ford Field. New Jersey Generals, Pittsburgh Maulers, they're playing at the Hall of Fame Stadium in Canton. You've got the Birmingham Stallions and the New Orleans Breakers. They're playing in Birmingham. And then you got the Houston Gamblers and the Memphis Showboats that are playing in Houston. Now, the Memphis Showboats are a new team this year. They're replacing the Tampa Bay Bandits. They're still coached by Todd Haley. They still have that pedigree going for them. But I do want to point out now that this means Houston has three, count them 3 mediocre football teams. And I said what I said, and I mean it.
At best.
At best. Who knows? The Texans could turn things around this year. Maybe. The Roughnecks are still technically the lead of their division, even though they're sloppy. And we'll get to how Houston played this week.
Gamblers.
Yeah, we'll talk about the Gamblers when we get there. So, first game of the weekend, Philly Stars versus the
terrible name.
The Gamblers.
The Gamblers for Houston. That should be a Vegas team's name.
Right? But there's no team in Vegas. So, I mean, it's whatever. And again, these also date back to the 80s. So, who knows? Maybe Houston was big on gambling back then. You feel lucky,
real
Punk?
Real quick, just a couple of names that have come out of USFL from the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Hall of Famers that played in the USFL. Jim Kelly, G. White, Steve Young, and
I didn't know Steve
Gary
Young
Zimmerman.
I didn't know Steve Young played for the USFL. What team?
Yep.
Does it say what team?
The Los Angeles Express.
They're not even a team this season. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
And then there were a couple other notable. Herschel Walker, Doug Flutie also played.
Okay.
And then a couple Hall of Fame coaches and executives from the USFL: George Allen, Polian, Mark Levy.
These are big names right there. George
Yeah.
Allen, Bill Polian, those immediately jump off the page. Big names in the football world.
So there is some pedigree to the USFL.
Mm-hmm. So
Again,
at the same time, kind of like how we've been talking with the XFL all season about the kind of names and like a lot of these people that we recognize, I did not get the same out of the USFL. We start out with this first game, Philadelphia versus Memphis. They're at Memphis. So they've got their quarterback, Sam Cookus. Man cooks. Man cooks. I'll make that pun. I'm not afraid. Put up 212 yards and 3 touchdowns. Let him cook.
on 20 of 29 throwing.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Not bad.
That's actually that's pretty impressive. Listen to some of these names he's throwing to. Like they're the lead receivers for the Philly Stars right now. Devin Gray, formerly of Devin Gray, formerly of the Falcons, and then Corey Coleman, who was most recently with the Browns. I believe he got drafted by the Browns. Did he not?
Yes.
Yeah.
He did.
Alex Collins, playing for Memphis, he was the lead rusher for their team. Put up a respectable 63 yards and a touchdown. So you've got Brady White throwing on the other side of the ball for Memphis, alumni of Michigan. I know a lot of Wolverines fans would appreciate his name being thrown out there. Good, but not great.
Not Dick Turner, just doing fan service.
No way. Not me.
Couldn't be you.
Nah,
Couldn't be you.
No way. So Brady White, I mean, his numbers weren't as good. 16 for 29, 182 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. He had some really good looking passes, but it was only a couple. The others were like, it was really hit and miss with him.
Yeah.
So, kind of like Michigan football. Oops. I know we've got a couple friends that are Michigan fans that went to Michigan or fans that are like, oh my God. Well, they probably won't know I said that shit. Let's be real. They're not the kind of people that watch this show. It's okay. I also have to point out, Philly Stars, they really don't have a true RB1. Cookus actually led the team in rushing with 31 yards. The other 63 yards were split between 3 other running backs.
When you're 21 yards per running back, that's not good.
Not good at all. Memphis does have a great defense. 5 sacks on the day. You've got Cookus is putting in work passing the ball, but at the same time, he ate 5 sacks from that Memphis defense. That's impressive.
Hard to be a good quarterback when you're on your back.
Also true. And how often do you see 5 sacks in one game from the NFL?
Not super common.
Yeah. I don't know if that's just bad line play or if it's just great defense play by the Showboats.
Possibly a mix of
Also,
both.
another weird name, the Showboats. I don't know how I feel about that name.
Yeah.
I mean,
Unless you're allowed to showboat, you shouldn't have a team named the Showboats.
The only other thing I wanted to note from this game, both teams have shit kicking. Aguilar went 0 for 1 on field goals and 3 for 4 on extra points for the Stars. And Kessman went 1 for 2 on field goals and 2 for 3 on extra points.
Is that the same Aguilar that was in the NFL?
I believe so. Roberto Aguilar, I think is his name. Is that right? I also have to point out, I want to take this moment to note that I had a hard time pulling stats for these games because they don't have their stats listed on ESPN and their website is terribly formatted. I did not enjoy looking up those stats. There's also not really good listing of their player names and everything, so I don't know.
Well, I'm not thinking of Aguilar. I'm thinking of Aguayo.
Roberto Aguayo. That's the name.
Yeah.
We'll have to look up the pedigree there. Philly wins this game 27-23. It was a close game. It was mildly fun to watch. We move on to the second game of the week. The New Jersey Generals at the Birmingham Stallions. Maybe I was just burned out from watching minor league clips all weekend or all night, but this was a boring ass game. I mean, this was all Birmingham. Um, New Jersey barely put up anything. I mean, they've got their RB1 and Darius Victor put up 89 yards on 8 attempts. That's
7 yards of carry.
Yeah, that's still good. That's still good, but that's about all that they had really going for them. Interesting to the point, both of these teams went with two quarterbacks cycling out, which I thought was pretty interesting. So you also had varying levels of success with that. So Birmingham, they play Jamar Smith. He gets 160 yards on 10 of 15, a touchdown, an interception, a fumble. Okay. Alex Magoo, who might have my favorite name in the league.
There's no way it's pronounced like that.
It's pronounced Magoo. I was like thrown off when I was listening to the commentary. I was like, Magoo? Who is it? Magoo? Okay. Whatever. He went 7 for 11, 68 yards, a touchdown in the air, and then another 51 yards rushing and a rushing touchdown. But I still can't get over his name being Magoo.
Oh my god.
You can enjoy that while you're covering the USFL. Kicking is a little bit better on this side of the ball, like on this game. The Stallions went 2 for 2 on field goals, 3 for 3 on extra points. Good on Brandon Aubrey and hit that leg. Good for them. Maybe there is hope for at this point. I'm like, okay, maybe there is some hope for special teams in this league. Maybe. Yeah. On the other, again, talking about the throwing, the Generals did not have the same success on throwing. Dakota Prukop, 13 for 17 for 148 yards and a fumble and a rushing touchdown. That's good. DeAndre Johnson, 4 for 13, 29 yards, 45 yards rushing.
That's bad.
That's very bad. It's very bad. I'm sorry. I'm going to call it like it is. When you throw 4 for 13, that's not good, my dude. Not good.
You have twice as many incompletions as completions. It's not a good day.
More than twice. And yeah, I was just burnt out by this point, but that game was a snooze fest. I mean, it was all Birmingham. There was nothing to it. They ended up winning 27-10. Not really much you can go with there. Let's talk about the Michigan Panthers and the Houston Gamblers. I stand by what I said. With Houston has 3 mid teams. Houston loses this game 29-13. Michigan's got something special in Josh Love. I gotta throw that out there. He was spreading the ball around a lot. He went 18 for 20, 90% completion. That's impressive. Yeah. 215 yards, 3 touchdowns. That's impressive. He is going to be a player to watch in this league. I'm calling that now. Of course, to have good passing, you have to have good receiving. Joe Walker puts up 6 catches, 105 yards, and a touchdown. That's impressive.
Yeah.
He did have a fumble in there, and it was a pretty ugly fumble. So keep an eye on him, but at the same time, he's got some work to do. Other side of the ball, Houston's quarterback Kenji Bahar. It's very sloppy play. 13 for 22, 109 yards, 2 interceptions and a fumble. Not impressed.
Not great.
Michigan also has their running put together. Stevie Scott is an amazing power running back. He is just bowling people over. He put up 61 yards and a touchdown. The 1-yard touchdown run I saw that he had, I think it was a 1-yarder. He just slams right through the line. He just no stopping him. Houston, they did have 2 touchdowns on the ground out of TJ Pledger. It was only 41 yards, but I think there's something there. Keep an eye on him.
Okay.
But outside of that, again, this game was all Michigan at this point. And then you got Pittsburgh and New Orleans. This was actually the funnest game to watch. This was all over the map. Pittsburgh has some wild special teams plays. Wild.
Okay.
They opened the game with a kickoff return that was thrown into that they reversed, and it worked. They actually got some yardage out of that. They also had a punt return from a touchdown from receiver Isaiah Henney. So I like the special teams play. I also like their defense. Their defense is pretty good. Their offense is something really needs work. We'll get to that. Hey, Bobby, what does the name McLeod Bethel Thompson mean to you?
Sounds like a law firm.
Yeah. You don't know. You're not really familiar with the CFL then, though, because he has a.
Not a big CFL guy. No, I can't say that I am.
I've noticed this name getting thrown around a lot last year, and I realized why. He is an all-star. He's a two-time all-star, a two-time Grey Cup winner. Actually led the Toronto Argonauts to a comeback victory against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in the Grey Cup last year. He
Ah.
also set the record for the most. He also set the record for the most rushing, or he's the all-time passing leader for the CFL. He had something of words of like I think it was 4,700 yards last season with the
Wow.
Toronto Argonauts. They said that if he does plan on returning to the CFL at all, it will be for Toronto. But for now, he's playing his time in New Orleans, and he's got something there for sure. He put up 23 for 41, 302 yards. Man's got a cannon of an arm.
Yeah.
And he also had the game-winning touchdown thrown in the fourth quarter. So, we'll get back to that. There was a scoop and score for the Maulers that they had off of an Anthony Jones fumble that was inside the 5-yard line. That was set up again by that Pittsburgh special teams. They had a punt that rolled its way in, and then one of the defenders got down to the ball in time, knocked it out at the 1-yard line. It was beautiful. And
Of those plays.
you gotta love seeing some great special teams play like that. Shouts out to our buddy Dave, who's in our fantasy football league. He actually is a special teams coach for a local amateur team. So he preaches special teams play. It can make and break your team, and this is one of those reasons. So that was what set up an Anthony Jones fumble from inside the 5. That's what led to the scoop and score by Chiava Tazzino. Jones still had 75 yards from scrimmage, 46 yards rushing, 29 yards receiving. Still had a touchdown. We can forgive him on a inside the 5 fumble. We can forgive him for that one. He's still got some 75 yards from scrimmage is not easy, no matter what.
I agree.
Again, Pittsburgh, that defense. I spoke highly of it. Bethel Thompson's arm did still get them into the red zone, got New Orleans into the red zone 5 different times, but they stopped them on 4 of those attempts. So it's good. They've got good red zone defense. It did lead to a Matt Coughlin having 5 field goals for New Orleans. That's something you don't see every day either. Kicker going 5 for 5. What's up?
Somebody get him in the XFL.
Right. Got some teams that need kicking. Hell, give him an NFL spot. There's teams that need kicking. Panthers need kickers.
Yeah.
We just re-signed
So
Eddie Pinheiro. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not sold on Pinheiro yet.
Remember what happened with Brett Maher missing all those extra points? I remember.
Teams. What was it? The Rams that went through like 3 different kickers. No, it was the Chargers went through like 3 different kickers last season. They had a guy that was bagging groceries at one point, and then they called him up, and he's like, "No, we'll give you a full-time gig for right now because you did good that 1 week."
Yep.
I can't remember who it was. I can't for the life of me. As I mentioned, Pittsburgh had no offense. They played 2 quarterbacks as well. James Morgan, Troy Williams. Morgan went 6 for 15, 58 yards. Troy Williams, 4 for 12, 23 yards. Neither one of them found the end zone. They had 3 running backs that combined for 72 rushing yards, averaging 24 yards a pop. Not good. Also, and then I think Morgan had a 7-yard run and Williams had a 5-yard run. That was 84 total rushing yards for the team.
Not good.
Not good. The scoreboard would not tell you otherwise in this game, but like that Pittsburgh offense did not look good at all whatsoever. Again, they scored 15 points, but that was 2 touchdowns worth. That were one was a punt return and one was a scoop and score.
Yeah.
So when your defense and your special teams get your 2 touchdowns and that's it, not a good look.
Bad for your offense.
Keep an eye as well. New Orleans Breakers, Sage Surratt had 85 yards at the tight end. And receiver Jonathan Adams had another 70 yards. I mean, to have like I said earlier, to have a good passer, you got to have good receivers. So
Yep, for
keep eyes
sure.
on those guys.
Mm-hmm.
And again, game won by a fourth quarter touchdown from Bethel Thompson. Game ends 22-15. New Orleans is up 1-0.
Quite a
Minor
bit of
league
football
football.
news.
A lot of minor league football this week and the weeks to come. But it's okay because this is practice for when we get to the NFL and we're covering 16 games a week.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we probably
Yeah.
won't go as in depth, but at the same time, we'll also probably be watching Red Zone and actually be able to watch all the games at the same time and be like,
Yep.
that was good, that was good, that was good. We could be making notes about the entire league as we go.
Yes. Yes.
We'll probably also be doing picks then. So,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Also,
So,
I also want to address something before the season, before we leave football. I think it's cool how we, by design, record on Tuesdays because we'll be able to cover the week after Monday Night Football and going into it, and then we can actually be talking like waiver wire type stuff and whatnot.
Yeah.
I think that works out. I think that was a design that I came up with that was by design, and like I kind of like it that way.
And it works out. It works on the wrestling side as well.
Yeah. With Tuesday being one of those, I mean, not necessarily the biggest of gaps. I mean, you do still have NXT, but like, again, you're coming off of normally your PLEs, all your pay-per-views, whatever, over the weekend.
Fallout from PLEs on Raw.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it's. I think we've got a
And you've got it just in time before Dynamite and Rampage, and
SmackDown.
yeah. Let's talk wrestling.
Speaking of Dynamite and
Speaking of-
AEW, CM Punk may be coming back.
It's been in talks. They've really been talking about it. Reports were circulating the past couple weeks that he really does want to come back. He still has the bug. Of course, Dax. He's been in constant contact with Dax Harwood of FTR. They talk on a day-to-day basis. That one episode that I was listening to of Dax's podcast, he talks about how him and CM Punk they just talk. They just shoot the shit and talk about old school stuff. Like, and Dax has said like in his talks with Punk that like he still has the bug. He still wants to be part of it, and there's a lot of talks this week that him and Tony Khan have been sitting down and actually talking seriously about a comeback. And what do you think?
Honestly, I'm over Punk.
I think I have to agree. Again, like, yes, there's a lot of the backstage issues and all that kind of stuff, but even when he came back, I even mentioned how like he looked sloppy, he looked old, he didn't quite have it. I mean, he can still put it together. Don't get me wrong, and there's still money in him, but he's still a damn good promo.
My thoughts on Punk are nostalgia is a hell of a drug.
Yeah, no, absolutely, that's the best way to put it. Absolutely. There is multiple reports though that are going around. Apparently, the first program that he's working, of all the people, there's still there's rumors that the Elite are trying to block his return. There are rumors of that. I don't know to what extent the truth is. I could see why they wouldn't want to. I could see how getting them to work together would be difficult. However, there's a lot of discussion that we could get Punk teaming with FTR to face the Elite at that show at Wembley that we were talking about last week. That would be a money shifter.
To be slightly devil's advocate here, you know, you always hear talks about what's best for business.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I agree with you. I could see absolutely why the Elite would not want him back. And I mean, they built AEW without him.
Mm-hmm.
AEW is still going with him being gone.
Yep.
You know, I mean,
they don't need him particularly.
And I don't have that Punk nostalgia the same way that you do.
I don't even really have it that much.
Like, I wasn't watching him in ROH or the Summer of Punk in WWE. Like, I wasn't watching in 2011.
I'm not going to lie, though. The Summer of Punk was what brought me back to wrestling. Like, 2011 was, like, the pipe bomb happened. So, just to give a little bit of clarity, I do still have that soft spot for Punk because the pipe bomb dropped, like, 3 weeks after I got out of the military and moved home. It was like,
Okay.
and that's where it was just like, I'm sitting around, I've got nothing to do, like I'm trying to figure out what's going on in life, trying to reestablish myself. And of course, like my love for wrestling came from watching it with my dad. And like that was like our thing growing up, like we were watching through the Monday Night Wars and everything. So when the pipe bomb happens, it instantly pulled me back in. And like that's the only reason I say, like, I managed to see the rise of Punk. I saw all the arguments he made about his 434-day run, on why he deserved to be main eventing and he wasn't. I get it. I get where he was coming from. I still, to this day, and I swear on this, I have scoured the internet for the past like 10 years or so looking for this clip. He famously left after the 2014 Rumble, right? Mm-hmm. I still swear to this day, back when they did Raw Talk or whatever it was, the pre-show and everything, there is a clip, I swear, I need to find it. One of these days I will find it. If anybody out there is watching this and they have seen that clip and they can corroborate this with me, I swear I'm not crazy. I swear I remember this. They went up, they interviewed him before Raw that night, and they were like, what do you think about so? He just goes, you want to know what I think? I quit. And he walks off screen. And that was the last they saw. That clip no longer exists anywhere. I have not been able to find it for years. I swear it happened, though. I just need someone to confirm that I was not the only one that saw that. It was on TV. I want to say it was happened.
I'll do this. $100 to anybody that finds this clip.
There you go. If somebody that can produce that clip, we are putting $100 bounty on it now. You produce that clip, you send it to me, we'll figure something. We'll talk that. Yeah, let's do that. But I swear on my life, I saw that clip. The clip does not exist online. I have scoured. I have looked for it. I guarantee it happened.
And one thing I will say about Dick here is he's got a solid memory. I believe you.
And it sounds very plausible. Like when you consider, again, his frustrations all came out right there with after the Rumble, how he had that Iron Man performance only to get eliminated by Kane coming back out and pulling him off the top rope. That was how he got eliminated.
Having said everything that you just said, I don't have any of that. Mm-hmm. I came back to wrestling in, I believe it was 2016, 2015.
16. Because that was around the time that I bought the network and I started getting into NXT. And then I was like, that's when I was finally pushing on everybody. Wrestling's coming back, guys. Wrestling's coming back. That was when I was like banging on the drums and everything. I was like, it's coming. 7 years later, look where we are now.
For me, CM Punk is almost like this mythical figure, right? Mm-hmm. Like I never watched him wrestle live until Dynamite. I've gone back and I've watched Money in the Bank 2011 and I wasn't there while it was happening. And it's very easy to go back and watch something in hindsight and be like, oh, that's a good match. But that's all it is to me.
That entire match. But that entire like 434-day reign, that was when I was getting back into wrestling, and I very much remember it.
Best example I can come up with, Kofi Mania.
Yeah.
Kofi Mania was incredible to watch live. You and I every week when the Usos came out and said, I'm literally getting chills now. When the Usos...
So that's the other thing. You missed the Yes Movement. You missed the entirety of the Yes Movement because the Yes Movement happened at the wake of Punk leaving. It literally happened around that time.
Like Kofi Mania, watching it live when it was happening is awesome. But now if you go back and you just watch those, like, you don't have all the story of all the Raws and the SmackDowns and all the pay-per-views at the time that led up to it.
All the struggling of you're not ready, you're a B-plus player. The whole fact that he should have never even been in the match because Mustafa Ali got injured. Like, that whole thing.
I don't have that with Punk.
Yeah.
So for me, my experience with Punk, he seems like a crybaby to me.
And a lot of people agree with that. Especially like when again, the body of work isn't standing up to prove it. Like this whole idea of nostalgia, people, I've been saying it the past couple of weeks with this Lita return. Like, she looks sloppy. Same thing with Punk. The Punk was the same way when he came back. He looked sloppy. He needed a couple weeks to get it all together and actually start putting on some decent matches. He did inevitably start putting on some decent matches, but it took some time. I also want to point out, though, that there are also a lot of talks right now, a lot of reports that are saying that the first feud, though, that's coming back, Jericho's willing to work with Punk now. And again, going back into that whole what's best for business. Jericho has always been a best for business kind of person. And despite his comments, he is smart enough to recognize that there's money in that match. And that would be
I agree.
I think that would be a great first feud for him back. Granted, now we got to deal. We're still working our way there because you've got the Jericho Appreciation Society feuding right now with. Why am I running a blank right now? Who are they feuding with? Shit. This doesn't help that we haven't been watching Dynamite because we both work Wednesday nights. Doesn't help our case. One thing I did find funny though, and this was actually today on Twitter, Joey Janela put out a tweet. He's like, "All right, and I quote, okay, guys, here it is. I'll work with CM Punk only on one condition. He watches every Rocky movie in a row and live stream it like Shia LaBeouf watching his own films." I thought that was funny. I popped.
Joey Janela still with AEW?
Say what? No, his contract ran up
so.
and he's done. He does all the stuff. He's more focused than anything on GCW and everything they got going on there.
Yeah,
that was a big falling out between the two sides.
I thought so.
Yeah. I also want to point out that there are multiple reports, both Fightful Select and Andrew Zarian of Matt Men from WON. They are talking about they've been talking about this new impending show that's been rumored. It's pretty much confirmed at this point. AEW is going to have a Saturday night show, and it's going to be called Collision. There are multiple reports corroborating that, and there's a lot of talk that Punk's return will either be on that episode or that week's Rampage. There's also a lot of talk that a lot of people circling. There's a date in June, I believe it is, that AEW is going to be running Dynamite in Chicago. And that's also what added to the Jericho teasing was Jericho tagged himself as he tagged a promo picture of him on Instagram. Tagged himself in Chicago, and the caption was just "You want to fuck around."
Isn't the Punk return in Chicago a bit played out?
It really is because it's happened twice already. This is gonna make number 3. Like, guys, it's like, do you have to make every Chicago return a thing? Like, can he return somewhere else and be a little bit more of a surprise? It's telegraphing way too much, and the burnout is there. But I get it. At the same time, it's money. It's a money shifter. Tell the Chicago crowd that loves Punk, that would die for Punk. You tell them, hey, Punk's coming back at home.
Built up heat. You have now Punk's coming out of Chicago. Punk's coming out of Chicago. Jericho comes out, says, guess what? Oh, there you go. Punk's music hits. Jericho walks out, calls out Punk, never shows up. Punk shows up next week. Boom.
That's good booking right there. Book it, TK. Book it.
I dare you.
I dare you. Who was it that did that? Didn't Punk do that in WWE at one point too? I think where they played somebody else's music and then he came out and was like, I got you. I know.
Undertaker.
Yeah, it was Taker.
Undertaker.
Yeah, it was the Taker feud. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, it's there. You can do it.
It's there.
And again, Jericho being the one that's starting to tease this whole thing, he's the right person to do it. If you're gonna have somebody to come back, honestly, that's a dream feud in itself because they have their history in WWE as well. Let's not forget that Jericho was one of the challengers, one of the big challengers during Punk's 434-day reign. Yeah, I want to say that was the Mania match that year. I have to go back and double check, but I'm pretty sure that was the Mania match that year. You looking it up?
I am.
Yeah. While you do that, let's talk some other AEW news. Fightful Select reporting. This one blew me away, honestly, last week. Shortly after we went off the air, Brian Cage announced that Brian Cage signed a new long-term deal. Tony Khan apparently said that he had hoped to keep Brian Cage and the entirety of the embassy together and wanted to keep them with the company for a long time. On Rampage I think it was either Rampage or Dynamite last week, they were promoting Swerve Strickland having a big announcement. As it turned out, it led into a merger between Mogul Enterprises and the embassy. Parker Boudreaux and that other tatted up guy, I can't remember his name, They are off the screen, which they weren't
That
ready.
guy with the face.
Yeah, that guy with the face and all the tattoos. All the tattoos on his face. I can't remember his name right
Wow.
now.
I don't
Great
have tattoos on my
reporting on this
face.
side. Great reporting.
Yes, it was Jericho versus Punk at Mania 28.
Thought so. Yep. So,
Um,
but yeah, no, those other guys that
good,
was.
good for AEW, good for Brian Cage.
Mhm.
I did think for a while that Brian Cage would be a good WWE guy.
I still think he'd be a great WWE guy, but it's still a great get for Tony Khan. And it's another
I
one
agree.
of those, oh, everyone was scared about what's going on with Vince. If is Vince coming back? Is it time?
Mhm.
Or also the fact that they do have this quote unquote hiring freeze in the WWE. That might have had something to do with it too. Very well could have.
Mhm.
Um, other signing news. Let's talk. I mentioned, I think it was last week or whatever, when we had Battle of the Belt 6. It was kind of a sleeper. It was kind of like a missable show because there were no title changes or anything.
Nothing happened.
Nothing really happened. I will say though, the Jade Cargill Billy Starks match was amazing, and so it's not confirmed, but on an episode of the podcast, What Happened When, Tony Schiavone actually stated that AEW has signed Billy Starks. Now, why this is notable, that was her first televised match because she had just turned 18. She's still in high school, and
Wow.
yeah, you didn't know that.
No.
Billy Starks is only 18, and let's not forget that also goes well with them having signed Nick Wayne, and Nick Wayne isn't even scheduled to have his first match on television until after he turns 18, which is going to be in June, and it's going to be against Swerve Strickland. For them to,
Wow.
yeah, they're picking up all these young kids and getting them into training.
Bro. Can you imagine graduating in June and then being on Dynamite the next week?
Could you imagine being like they were talking about on commentary during the match? Could you imagine how she was competing for the TBS title and could have potentially won that title and brought it the home room with her?
Look at the geometry, yeah.
Yeah, like well,
That's fucking nuts.
yeah, it's a real thing. They're not afraid
Good for her
because you got to
and
think
good for Nick Wayne.
because you got to think most of the people in WWE like Roxanne Perez is like the youngest they have, and she's what 21, 22.
Right.
They don't really have anybody in those teenage ranks. Like
Oh.
that's AEW going and snatching them up while they're young, getting them into the system and training them. But let's not forget that these are two standout names on the indie scene.
Yeah.
And it's not the first time that we've seen great names coming out of like those young like coming out of the indies from them being young people. Like Shazza McKenzie, Millie McKenzie, both of them.
Hmm.
Both names that they got their start in their Roxanne Perez again, like herself, she got her start at what 13, 14 in reality of wrestling.
Rio.
There's a lot of young kids that are getting their training early and they're getting signed to big contracts.
Didn't Riho tag with Kenny Omega when she was 9 or 11?
Something like that. I wasn't really following New Japan like that back then.
It's still like,
Yeah.
yeah, good for them.
Yeah.
So this next note, I'll let you take it, but before you get into it, I wanted to say this was going to be my opener
Okay.
before I decided to go with.
I was gonna try and find something to do with that too.
Couldn't
Normally,
come up with anything. I couldn't come up with anything to rhyme with the name.
yeah. So we had a lot of returns on Dynamite last week. A lot of returns. And the most notable name being one Jeff Hardy. Yeah, what can you say? I mean, it's great to see him back. He looks great. He looks healthy. Good on him.
That's number one.
Yes, that is
That's
still
the
the
most
number one
important,
thing is that he looks
the most
healthy
important thing.
and he's mentally prepared to be back on the road. Of course, he is.
This dude's got more lives than a cat,
Yeah,
and I hope he gets it.
I really do too.
I hope this round of recovery sticks. I hope that there's a plan in place. I hope it's not just I'm out of rehab, I'm back to wrestling. I hope that there is something in there that will help him.
I do think
Because
this
it's
is his
important.
last shot, though.
Honestly, it has to be.
It really does.
It has
This
to,
has to
because
be it.
there comes a point, and you and I know this very well. There comes a point where you're an enabler.
Yeah, There's a point where at the very least, like, you being on the road like that, it definitely plays a factor. And granted, there are a lot of people in the wrestling world that have been through recovery. A lot of them. Dustin Rhodes has been very vocal about how he's like, what is it, like 20 something years sober now? Like, he's been very vocal about his journey. There's a lot of people that, like, they really do put, and that's actually a big thing too, is that the wrestling world, there's really turning away. Like, you hear all the stories about the old days with people just going out and being the drunk. I drinking with the boys and everything. Like, Taker's been very vocal, being the old man yelling at the cloud in this situation, where he's like, back in our day, it wasn't kids playing video games and everything backstage. It was all us. We had real men drinking. It doesn't need to be like that anymore. There are people actually approaching healthier lifestyles. More people are actually focused on not drinking because it affects their physique more than anything.
I mean, look, Regal.
Great example. Regal's another great example. But all the different people, Moxley, him having gone to recovery and then coming back in great shape. Mm-hmm. All these people that have been there, that have done that could really help guide Jeff to make, if he is open and willing to have the mentorship from these people that have been there and done that, it is possible. AEW, honestly, in this case, is the right place for him, because there are a lot of people that have been there and done that and can really attest to helping him out. That being said, again, I think this is his last shot.
Yeah. Kurt Angle, sober.
Mm-hmm. You and me, we've talked about this many a time. I've always admired Triple H and his approach. He was always the guy that, like, he doesn't drink much, but it's like the occasional one or two with the boys on, like, a special occasion. Outside of that, he doesn't normally drink. And that was something that I always, because I mean, you, of course, you're sober. I've been toying with sobriety myself. I mean, I'm at this point now where it's just like, I'm the same way. I'm okay with being the one or two drinks and then calling it a night. I'm perfectly okay with that.
I'm coming up on 2 years clean from all mood and mind altering substances.
Yeah. It's something we take that shit personally.
So, it is personal.
Yeah.
It is, because one slight more peek behind the curtain, man. Me and Dick didn't talk for over a year.
Yeah. And a lot of it had to do with you getting sober.
Because of my choices. And look, like, I'm the biggest supporter for people that want to get in recovery, but at the same time, I'm no nonsense when it comes to enabling.
Mm-hmm. You got to really put your money where your mouth is in this kind of situation.
Absolutely, man. Because, like, talk is cheap. What are you going to do to back it up? And Jeff Hardy has had more than his fair share of chances.
Exactly.
The problem is because he's willing to put his body on the line, people will throw money at him.
Exactly. And when you have that money and you're around people, especially if you do have those people that are back and that are going to be like, yo, come out and hang out with us. You don't have to drink, but you're going to be surrounded by it and you're tempted by it. Like, that's still, like, the temptation is there no matter what.
And also, before we move forward, one last wrestler that, according to the quick research I did while we've been discussing this, it also says that Randy Orton is sober.
I can see it. I can definitely see that. Somebody that
didn't read the reasoning why. I do know that he himself has said when he was coming up and he was young and he was the legend killer, that he was an asshole and he was doing a lot of things that he knew he shouldn't have been doing. I mean, he himself said he was drunk or hungover for his father's Hall of Fame induction.
Mm-hmm.
And the speech that he gave he's ashamed of it.
Yeah. Another one that before we move on as well, another one that we really have to throw in there, because it's also a notable recent name, Matt Riddle. Matt Riddle has recently gotten clean. He's had to approach sobriety because of the things that he's been going through. And they made it public about how he had lost his marriage and his kids and stuff like that. Like, that affected his home life. That's what took him off TV for the past couple months. He's just coming back to TV.
My last thing on this. Please, for the love of God, AEW and Tony Khan, don't turn this into a storyline.
Do not do what they did with him and Sheamus, like they did, and make it a whole big storyline. That's just it's such poor taste.
It is. It
There's
is.
so many better storylines you can write than that.
Look what happened with Hawk. Look what happened with Scott Hall.
Mm-hmm.
Like we don't need that storyline.
You really don't. TNA loved throwing that storyline around back in the day. But let's not forget that Jeff Hardy and his TNA run, the infamous Victory Road. Yep. We don't even need to say any more on that. Speaking
if
of,
you don't know what we're talking about, Google.
Speaking of that match, however, that was not the only return that we saw this week on AEW. Sting himself, on the other side of that match, made a return on Rampage to confront MJF about him and Darby. Like, came to Darby's defense. I think Sting's another one of those names, though, that is like he's gotten old and he doesn't move quite the way he used to. But that man can still move. More than most.
Bro, he's in his fucking 60s, bro.
Exactly.
That's nuts.
He's just trying to keep up with Flair. You know how it is. Flair refusing to give it up. I feel like the two of them are arguing over who's going to have the last match.
But Sting has come out and said that, I believe his direct quote was, the road is coming to an end.
He knows it. Especially him being part of Muda's retirement tour. That has a lot to do with it. Like, I think he knows he's almost done.
I don't, although I will say, I don't think Sting ever leaves the business. I think he goes behind the curtain.
Oh, absolutely. He'd be a great hand behind the curtain. He'd be a great, coach, promoter, trainer, agent. Yeah, everything all along those lines. He's a great hand to have in your company for sure. He's so many decades of knowledge.
40 years of knowledge, bro. Like
not just knowledge, but like top of the card knowledge.
Right.
He has been the top of the card since the 80s.
Like, Surfer Sting.
Yeah, Surfer Sting. Also returning last week, Sean Spears came back on Rampage as well.
Perfect 10.
The Elite coming back to the screens after their short hiatus. Matt Jackson apparently is still injured, is still working through injury. He's not going to be in ring as much. He's still kind of working through that. But
who's your favorite between the two Jackson brothers, Matt or Nick?
Nick. I
really
Nick.
I like Matt.
That's fair. I mean, to each their own. Just going right off of you saying that, I give my vote to Nick personally.
All right.
I think Nick's a little bit more dynamic. Like in comparison, like you can really draw the comparisons between Matt and Nick the same way that you can draw the comparisons between Matt and Jeff Hardy. And I've always looked at it as Matt and Matt are kind of the same. And Nick is
but I feel like everyone's favorite is Jeff.
Yeah, but at the same time, like it's also like you see more high flying risk out of Nick, and that's kind of the same thing with Jeff. So that's why I say Nick. Only other note I have from AEW here, Jay White and Juice Robinson. Of course, we had the debut of Jay White last week. They're now calling themselves Bullet Club Gold. What do you think?
I understand that Bullet Club was massive in Japan.
It still is.
I understand that. But
it's still
we are not in Japan. And it honestly feels like you're riding coattails.
I have to agree. I feel like the whole Bullet Club thing has definitely run its course. They could have done something. They could have called themselves anything else. You already have Bullet Club. You already have your own faction of Bullet Club and Impact, even with Ace Austin and Chris Bay doing their thing. And
this also extends to WWE with Gallows and Anderson being the club. I'm not just shitting on AEW for this.
They make the OC enough of its own thing, though. Also, I would love to see them come back to their screens as soon as AJ gets healthy. Please.
Yeah.
I want to see them come back. But no, my thought process on this, if Jay White is calling around, if him and Juice Robinson are going around calling themselves Bullet Club Gold, right? Is this going to cause another elite Bullet Club OGs kind of thing like we had back in the days of Kenny Omega versus Cody Rhodes? Like,
yes, it is.
And like, is that whole like, and then as soon as they made it up, then you had the Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa going off and Bad Luck Fale. They're like, no, we're the OG Bullet Club. We're the real deal. And y'all are just some people that try to take over. And then that's when the Elite kind of went off and did their own thing. Are we going?
Old idioms? using old idioms that no one uses anymore. They are just trying to fucking squeeze blood from a stone with this shit.
Seriously.
They're wringing this towel out of Bullet Club for everything they can get. Like, oh, how about this story of Bullet Club versus the Elite?
But so here's my thing too, and this is the only other thing I'm thinking on it, is that you have this whole idea now where Jay White they made a whole big deal about Jay White leaving New Japan and not being the leader of Bullet Club anymore, but he's still calling himself Bullet Club. Is that going to play into a factor when you've got David Finlay, Juice Robinson's original tag team partner, as the quote-unquote new head of Bullet Club? So, like, is that going to cause some kind of rift a la Cody and Omega? Like, is that going to be a thing too?
And the answer to that question is just yes, it is.
Exactly.
It is.
Like, it's going to be a thing. We know it. It's going to lead to matches, especially when you consider that right now both sides are kind of in between. They're both healed. They're both face. Like, Bullet Clubs has slowly been, like, the members of Bullet Club right now in New Japan, they are more tweeners than anything with the fact that they've been facing off against United Empire. You've got them, like, especially because there's so many different heel factions in New Japan, especially when you have the fact that the House of Torture already branched off and did their own thing, and that's half original Bullet Club anyways. Like, Bullet Club is not the same as it was 3 years ago. 3 years ago, no. Even. It's more like 5, but even just 3 years ago, it's not the same.
Yeah, more like 5.
Yeah, more like 5. But, like, Bullet Club peaked in, like, 2016, 2017, and then it's been downhill since.
Yeah, dude, and, like, I would argue that, like, at one point, man, Bullet Club t-shirts, that's the... For, you know, whenever we see wrestling fans in the wild, Bullet Club shirts is what you would see.
Yeah. I have a Bullet Club shirt. Shit. No, from that same time frame.
You do.
Yeah. So it's a thing.
Like, but still, like, they are just bleeding it dry.
Yep. Hey, speaking of Impact, we forgot to do picks for Rebellion last week. Not that either one of us watches a lot of Impact, but
I picked the winners.
Are you just post-mortemly calling post game? You're just going ahead and like, I picked all the winners. Fucking dick move. I went back. I watched highlights. I did see quite a few highlights. I was interested in the return of Ultimate X. I was less interested when I found out it was because they were defending the tag team titles in it, and it was only 2 teams either way. I'm used to Ultimate X being that like multi-man madhouse for the X Division title because that's what it's supposed to be. But no, it was for the tag team titles. Ace Austin and Chris Bay, Bullet Club, there we go again, full circle. They retained the belts against the Motor City Machine Guns, which of course the Motor City Machine Guns are Ultimate X veterans in their own right. The only other thing that goes into that too is that we also had the X Division Championship defended on that show in a 3-way elimination match. Trey Miguel, Jonathan Gresham, Speedball Mike Bailey. Trey Miguel ends up retaining. Gresham's the first one out. I know, like, we have all the talk about, like, last week we were talking about Jonathan Gresham and, like, him making his amends for, yeah, no, I said some stupid shit and I went to therapy for it. Good for him. But, yeah, you have to live with your consequences still.
Yep.
Trey Miguel, like I said, though, he retains. Santino Marella back in action for the first time in an Impact ring. He's teaming with Dango and Joe Hendry. Great team. A great 3-man team. They're facing off against the Design, Big Con, Angels, Diener, Sami Callihan. They're all doing their thing. And then we get the inevitable Sami Callihan turn. They've been this whole thing with Sami Callihan joining the Design from the very beginning. It reminded me of Daniel Bryan joining the Elite, joining the Wyatt family, or like being brainwashed by the Wyatt family back in 2014. That same storyline. So when you inevitably get Sami Callihan getting a bat and then turning around and hitting Diener with it, like, it's expected. You saw it coming from a mile away. And then of course you get the most appropriate way to end that match, which is Santino getting the pin after hitting the Cobra. You'll love it. You'll love to see it. Hardcore War, Team Bully versus Team Dreamer. Honestly, I'm not bothered to sit here and go through all the names on that. All I know is that it was a bloodfest, just as every Hardcore War should be.
Please retire.
I wouldn't go that far. They both still have a lot of years in them. That being said, I want to address before the match took place, like earlier in the show, Tommy Dreamer had a very impassioned promo that he cut, talking about how it was the worst week of his life. His mom apparently had a stroke and has been in the hospital all week. He's said flat out like, "Hey, after this match, I'm taking some time away so I can take care of my family." There were a couple of other news outlets that did corroborate this and said, yes, this is a real thing. So with that being said, we do send our best wishes to Tommy Dreamer and his family. It's
Absolutely.
a very unfortunate situation.
It is.
You had the most appropriate ending in the world after that with Dreamer getting the pin on Bully Ray. That's all you really need to say on that one. Also, one other takeaway from that match, no one let Killer Kelly have a staple gun ever again. That girl was
I gotta look at this.
Yeah, she at one point she's stapling everybody, and then she just staples herself for the sake of it. And I'm just like, why?
I think I'm in love.
Just why? We also get the return of the Last Rites match, their version of the casket match. PCO versus Eddie Edwards. I mean, the two of them are always going to put on a good match. Let's be real. It actually ends with Alicia coming out from the back and hitting PCO with a shovel, and he just no-sells it. And then he just sidesteps as Eddie Edwards goes in for the super kick, and then his wife ends up eating the super kick instead. Takes the distraction. PCO comes in, throws him into the casket. There you go. There's your match. By the numbers, you did it right.
Getting hit in the head with a shovel is no joke, man. I got 7 staples in my head when I was 5 years old.
Yeah, but she's in the back, not in the head.
Oh, get out of here.
Square in the back. You're not gonna you're not gonna do shit the PCO like that. PCO's been through way worse.
That's true.
Now let's get to now we got to get to the 2 championship matches, because of course over the past couple weeks we saw both the World Championship and the Knockouts Women's Championship getting vacated. Unfortunately, both were injured. The reports that were coming out this week of Mickie James's injuries, holy shit, she is beat the fuck up. I don't know. I think it's like several bruised ribs, broken this, that, and the other. She's I didn't pull it up. I didn't put it in the notes, but she's just all sorts of beaten up right now, and she needs to take her time away.
Take her time.
And she was fighting doctor's orders, being like, no, I still want to wrestle. Doctors had to pretty much force her to be like, no, you need a break.
Wrestlers are a fucking different breed, bro.
They really are. That being said, we have at the start of the men's match, Nick Aldis is out on commentary and says that he signed a new contract with Impact. He, of course, has been silent since leaving the NWA. I don't think anybody's following the NWA anymore at this point. Ever since they put the title on Tyrus, I don't think anybody's following them. Sorry.
A 40-year-old Tyrus at that.
Yeah. Sorry, Billy. I had faith in you at first. I don't have faith in you anymore. Mm-hmm. I still love the Smashing Pumpkins, but I do not have faith in Billy Corgan as a booker. That being said,
it's fair.
We have Nick Aldis returning to Impact, where he made his name. He's out on commentary for the championship match. We have a barn burner of a match between Steve Macklin and Kushida. Macklin picks up the win. I just laugh because you got to think in WWE he was forgotten. Mm-hmm. Pun intended. Yeah, pun intended on that one. But he picks up the win. He's now the new world champion. After the match, and let's not forget that during the title, when Josh Alexander retired the title, Scott D'Amore got in his face, was talking about how disrespectful he was, and just reaming him. You're getting a whole him versus the Authority, Authority versus heel gimmick right now out of Macklin. D'Amore comes out and doesn't even hand him the title, throws the title at him. It's just take it, and then turns around and Macklin hits him with the title. So, and that leads to Macklin running at the mouth, Aldis jumps off of commentary, gets in the ring, stares him down, and all I can say is, please give me this match immediately. Macklin, I have to say, is one of the most improved talents ever since coming to Impact. And like he's had a really big career resurgence since he's come to Impact. And I really want to see this match between him and Aldis now. Also, got to give shouts out to Macklin as well. Let's not forget, Marine Corps veteran as well. Semper.
Respect.
Semper, my brother. Semper.
Respect. You know how I feel about you, the people that fought.
I get it all the time. I know. That brings us to the women's match, though, and we get to his wife facing his wife, Deonna Purrazzo, getting her shot for the vacated title against Jordynne Grace. Let's not forget that she won that four-way back at Multiverse United. That's what gave her this title opportunity. Jordynne Grace, of course, she was originally supposed to face Mickie James, and so she was still in it. Deonna Purrazzo wins. Pretty good match. It was a pretty good match. I saw the highlights. Pretty good match. Also, of note, though, this week it came out, I think it was just the other day, it came out that Jordynne Grace's contract has actually ran out with Impact last month. She's been kind of working, like, as on a per appearance.
Freelance almost.
Yeah, a freelance almost. This could also see the end of Jordynne Grace in Impact. And
I think she's another one who would be great in the E.
You know what? I disagree. I think she needs to go to AEW and make that women's division even better.
Ooh, that's also not a bad shot.
And I think I think she fits AEW better. Also,
she would definitely have to be tweaked if she went to WWE, for sure.
No, absolutely. And plus, I think right now the top of the card in the WWE is it's too packed. If anything, she goes to NXT and just runs roughshod in there. Especially when you have everybody talking about the possibility of Roxanne Perez moving up in the draft. You've got Indy holding the title. You've got a lot of names still in the NXT title picture right now that are still being floated around. You've still got to pay off the whole Gigi Dolan versus JC Jane storyline we got going on right now. And that's probably going to have the title involved. You've got Zoe Stark actively getting involved in those matches, like actively fighting for the championship right now. You've got names like Tiffany Stratton moving up. Like, there's a lot of people that are still in the running for that NXT title. You can't even say that she can go there and immediately get put into the top of the card. She could.
A very valid point with everything you just said.
Yeah. AEW, honestly, right now, the women's division is still kind of lacking. I mean, it really hasn't been getting a lot of it, ever since Jamie Hayter took the title. Like, I'm going to say something really out of pocket here. Jamie Hayter wasn't ready. I know the crowd loves her. I know that everyone thinks she puts on great matches and everything. I don't think she has the mic skills yet. She still is relying on her friendship with Britt to make it work.
That's fair. That's fair. I'm gonna put my fantasy booker hat on real quick.
Okay.
Jordynne Grace goes to AEW and defeats Jade Cargill.
They're already teasing her versus Jade Cargill versus Taya Valkyrie, and Taya Valkyrie having just signed. Her being the one to take the title. I would rather see that, honestly, right now, because I think we're already coming to the end of Jade Cargill's run. And again, like everybody's been saying, it's time for Jade to drop the TBS title and to go for the world title. It's time for her to go for the women's world title. It's long overdue.
Go ahead.
I also want to point out, this is the first time that I can think of in a long time that you have a married couple on top of a company with the two belts, with Macklin and Purrazzo.
The most recent one I can think of is Becky and Seth in 2019.
That was the other one I was thinking of, and
4 years.
That was the only other one I was thinking of. I think there was another one. Not necessarily. It wasn't Adam Cole and Britt Baker. I don't think. Maybe, but even though they were in different companies.
Yeah.
There was another one. There's another one I thought of earlier that was in the WWE that I can't remember right now. But yeah, Seth and Becky was the other one that came to mind.
Yeah.
And actually, at the time, I think that was while they were still dating. I think that was when they started dating.
It might have been.
So they weren't even married at the time.
Yeah. So now let's move on to WWE Notes.
Yep, we got it. We do still have a few of those.
Yep.
I'll let you take your first one.
Yeah, I feel like you've been talking a while with all the XFL and USFL coverage, and then leading
Bro,
into.
I need you to carry the weight here. I'm running
I
out of
got
breath.
you. I got you. So LA Knight is the rumored favorite to win the briefcase of Money in the Bank.
Yeah!
You know I'm gonna spam that button.
I knew it was coming 2 hours ago when we started. Totally forgot. Um,
Yeah!
I also put in our notes, like, that actually makes a lot of sense because WWE has a history of taking somebody that they think is WWE has a history of the person that they want to hold the Money in the Bank briefcase going on a losing streak before winning the briefcase.
Exactly, and him
A
having
lot of people are pissed that LA Knight is losing right now.
Oh, exactly. The fact that he wasn't even on the WrestleMania card. LA Knight was not in LA for Mania. That was
Right.
a huge, huge like
Misstep.
slap in the face to the fans. Like
Yeah.
it
And
it really it could have hurt him, but at the same time, he's too big to fail. And I've been a longtime fan of Eli Drake. Okay, so
Yeah.
I've been preaching him since he was still in Impact. So I'm so glad to finally see him get his due. I think it's time. You're right. They do have a history of putting the briefcase on somebody that's on a losing streak because it's somebody that is normally like you're gonna have them come in and be that like last minute hot shot heel that comes in. And honestly, at this point, he's really bridged the gap and he's become a tweener, and it's okay for him.
So typically the briefcase is better suited for a heel. I think we can both agree on that. Typically. However, something that doesn't get talked about as much, the briefcase is better for somebody that's a good fucking talker.
Yeah, it's great for anybody that's great on the mic and can just talk their way through it.
Because they're not fighting. It's the possibility of cashing in, which is a lot of fucking mouth service. And let's be real, LA Knight is in the top 5 in WWE of talkers right now.
Oh, absolutely. Not even a
You know?
question.
And I think he could do some great things with that briefcase. If I put my fantasy booker hat back on real quick, we have Cody win at SummerSlam. He says, I don't want the Universal. I really only came for this. He takes a WWE championship, vacates it to SmackDown. We get a transitional champion on SmackDown. LA Knight cashes in. There's our fucking new belt holder for SmackDown.
It's a possibility. My other thing too, like you brought it up yourself. There's a history of letting people that have been on losing streaks. I've also said, and I've been preaching this about a lot of these NXT call-ups that have been coming up recently in the new Triple H era. A lot of these guys that are on long contracts that can afford to take some L's, like LA Knight and Johnny Gargano. A lot of these guys that are like they get called up and they're just kind of floating around at the bottom of the card. It's okay because they've got plenty of years in the tank. They have plenty of time. LA Knight, LA Knight's in his 40s. Like his time needs to come. Like
It's true.
If he's not in his 40s, if he's not in his early 40s, he's in his late 30s. But like I'm pretty sure he's like 40 or 41. But again, that's like he doesn't have as much time, but at the same time, him being a call up, they know that the top of the card is already pretty filled up. You're catching him when he's on a hot streak. It's the perfect time to give him that belt, that briefcase.
He turns 41 this year.
I was right. He's 40. Yeah. So yeah.
And he's from Hagerstown, Maryland.
Yep, he's from Hagerstown. I knew that.
Oops. But thank you. But no, I think that is your best case scenario for your briefcase holder this year, where the landscape of WWE currently. The only other argument I could possibly make would be for Sammy, but Sammy and KO have the tag belts. So I think, and again, you don't need to give it to Sammy. Sammy's already hot enough on his own. I think LA Knight is the perfect call to win the briefcase.
Exactly.
I know a couple people, mostly our friends across the pond, are upset that an English superstar is not going to win it in England. Get over it.
It's whatever. I haven't heard anything about that, so I'm taking that with a grain of salt.
I heard one comment on What Culture about it.
Oh, whatever. I'm gonna put these next two together because they're pretty much the same.
Should be together.
Yeah, middle of last week, everyone starts going crazy because Drew McIntyre blacks out his Twitter profile, and he removes all mention of WWE in his name. Of course, there's been a lot of discussion about his contract coming up.
For his actual Twitter handle.
What's that?
Except for his actual Twitter handle, which is still Drew McIntyre WWE.
Which, of course, because of the new rules on Twitter, is all jacked up and you can't change that.
Correct.
Yeah. Becky Lynch, on the other hand, actually got rid of her Twitter verification, changed her profile name back to Rebecca Quinn. Her ad is still like Becky Lynch. Obviously, you can't change that, but she changed her name back to Rebecca Quinn. Now, the both of them, again, the big discussion right now is that the both of them have contracts up next year. And there's all this speculation of, oh, they're going to leave. No, it's too early to tell. I wouldn't be surprised if this is, again, one of those things that, well, first off, Drew's going to be off TV for a little bit because he's been dealing with injuries. That's been widely known, and he's going to take his time. I get that there's a lot of discussion right now about them not meeting in the middle right now on money. I think that's still possible that Drew could find a way to, like, I would not be surprised if Drew walks and goes to AEW. I wouldn't mind seeing Drew Galloway in AEW. I think right now Drew is unfortunately like his championship run taking place during the pandemic, him having to do that to empty crowds. I think he does still like have a lot left in the tank. He's still in his 30s, I believe. He's got a lot left to give. But at the same time, he's pretty much mixed it up with the entirety of the top of the card in WWE. So at this point, I wouldn't mind seeing him cross the divide, going to AEW and going to the top of their card and start mixing up with some of their big names. You could have some great dream matches.
Oh, yeah. And I do think that Drew deserves a championship run in WWE with live fans because he carried them during the pandemic.
At the same time, I think that ship has sailed.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hate to say it. Becky, on the other hand, she's going to get re-signed. She's going to get good money out of it. I doubt they let her go.
I think Becky and Seth are lifers.
Yeah, I think so. I agree. I think it's a great way to put it, especially them being the married couple and them having like the same as much rapport as they have with Trips and Steph. Like, yeah. I would not be surprised if they're locker room leaders. Come on.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I'm taking both of those with a grain of salt. Also, I mean, Becky, she's taking some time off of TV, apparently. A little bit of time off, because what really did it was that today she tweeted out that she's not going to be at Raw, and then everybody started sending up all the speculation alerts and everything. And I'm just like, Fightful Select came out, said that she's dealing with a minor foot injury that's been aggravated the past couple weeks. I mean, she also can afford to take a few weeks off.
Yes.
And it gives it time for this feud between her and Trish to start building up. She's definitely still has a future in the company. She has a few great storylines going on. She doesn't need to have the title to be at the top of the card. Like, she's in a great spot. I agree. I do not see her leaving, and honestly, she still has a lot left to give in the E. She's probably there for life.
I agree. Fightful Select reported that Johnny Gargano's absence, is due to the re-aggravation of his shoulder injury. That's what caused them that's what caused them to miss time back in January.
Fun fact.
Direct quote.
Fun fact: since March 7th, he's already wrestled a dozen matches while still injured.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, his program with Waller.
Yeah.
So the direct quote from Fightful Select is, "We're told that the shoulder injury got worse after his Royal Rumble return, and by the time of the NXT match with Grayson Waller, he was severely hampered in using one arm. Hope from the company is that he can repair the injury with physical therapy as opposed to surgery."
I think that's a good call. Also, I think this works out great because it gives time for both him and Ciampa to finish healing up, and then they can come back and do the whole DIY. I want DIY on the main roster. Everyone wants DIY on the main roster. Make it happen. Please.
Honestly, DIY was so hot, you could probably repeat that storyline beat for beat from NXT on the main roster, and it would be fine.
You could have them going against each other. You could have them working together. They are they are the exact same as KO and Sammy. And a lot of people are actually calling for that match still. KO and Sammy versus DIY. And I would love that match.
Take that.
Oh
I'll
my
take
God.
that.
Put it in my veins, please.
Yeah.
God.
So there was also speculation that his absence was a Vince move. But we've already had those rumors dispelled by sources pointing out that Vince was involved in the contract talks that led Gargano to stay in the company last year.
Mm-hmm. He actively said that he wanted Gargano to stay, and that was part of the contract talks. And I think Johnny also, like right now with where he's at in his career, I wouldn't necessarily say he's a lifer yet. I can't really, that's too soon to tell, but he's definitely with the E for years to come. I would not.
He also has loyalty to Trips.
Yes,
Might not be a lifer to the E. He might not be a lifer to the E, but he has loyalty to Trips.
Absolutely. I mean, he is Mr. NXT. He is NXT's Shawn Michaels.
No argument.
Easy.
No argument.
Reports are stating Cody Rhodes actually took time while he was in LA to discuss movie roles. He actually wants to break into Hollywood. And notably, they did say that he has no intentions of becoming a part-timer. Anything he does would have to work around his WWE schedule.
Good luck getting roles with that, dude.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, I mean, I think he could do it. I wouldn't mind.
Not if he's about to be the champ.
What's that?
Not if he's about to be the champ.
I mean, Miz did it back in the day. When Miz was IC champion and still, like, filming the Marine 5 and 6. Like...
That's different than the person that dethrones Roman Reigns' 1,000-day reign.
I also don't think he's the person to dethrone the 1,000-day reign, and we've already talked about that. My Nostradamus is still in play.
Yeah. Yeah. So that leaves us now to my favorite part of this week's show.
Mm-hmm.
Just a whole bunch of fun facts.
Literally, we were just bored. Like the news was so slow last week, and it was slow at the beginning of the week. We just started throwing some fun facts that we found because there was a lot of funny stuff that was going around on like social media and stuff.
So here's the first, and this is going to be no rhyme or reason. Some's wrestling, some's football.
We're just having some fun here.
Yeah. So if the Arizona Cardinals won every single game from now until 2035, their all-time franchise record would be 500.
I saw that same graphic where it was like how many wins each team needs to get the 500 that are under 500. The Panthers are only at 2024. We could do it in like 2-3 years. We can get back to 500. We're also a young team. The Cardinals, on the other hand, it's hard to be a Cardinals fan. I'm sorry.
12 years of undefeated seasons just to get to 500.
It's hard to be a Cardinals fan. I feel bad for y'all.
Mm-hmm. We already talked about the draft history with the potential of 4 quarterbacks going to the top 10. I also learned that Bruce Smith, the NFL's all-time sack leader with 200 sacks, never led the league in sacks for a season.
That actually blew me away when I read that. I was like, really?
The closest he ever came was 1990, and he had 19 sacks that year. But Derek Thomas of the Chiefs had 20.
Yep, that was the Derek Thomas year. You're right.
So that's the all-time leader in sacks. Never led the league in sacks.
Yeah. I just threw this in here because I didn't really know of a better place to put it. We're getting season 4 of Dark Side of the Ring.
That was my opener.
Next month. Yeah.
I'm excited about it. I love that series.
Same. I forget. Let me pull up the press release. I know they talked about some of the things they're going to cover. I know they're going to cover Magnum TA and the accident that derailed his career. Side of the Ring, season 4. Let's see. What other things are they covering? I think Abdullah the Butcher is in there. Yep. Marty Jannetty's getting covered.
Ooh.
Chris Candido and Sonny are getting covered.
Ooh.
There's going to be some good episodes this season.
Yeah.
Like, I cannot deny that I was blown away. What was the original one that blew everyone away? The Hulk Hogan one was one.
hang on. Let me go back to season 1 real quick and
Yeah,
see.
I'm literally about to pull up like the history of Dark Side of the Ring, like their episodes.
Montreal Screwjob episode. The
That was a good one.
Bruiser Brody episode.
I think it was the Oh, here we go. Here's all of them on Wikipedia. The first season had the Fabulous Moolah, yeah, Gino Hernandez, the Von Erichs. That was one.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the one that
Benoit.
really got me. Was the Benoit one?
Yeah.
That was what hooked me in. I was just like, oh god, they did so good on that one.
Had New Jack, the Brawl for All.
Mm-hmm. The Road Warriors, Owen Hart's accident. Just the Chris Benoit episode. I'm never gonna forget that one because it was just. I've said it many a time. I was a longtime fan of Chris Benoit until, of course, he became the persona non grata in the wrestling world. It's really important. I grew up a Benoit fan, and it's so sad. Watching the end of that story was just so sad, the way it is. And the fact that he is now persona non grata, there's a little part of me that's still like, God damn it. Mm-hmm. But further proof that all your heroes are terrible people.
Yeah, and I mean, Paul Heyman said it best. 3 people died that night. 2 of them didn't have a choice.
Exactly.
Fuck Chris Benoit, and if he's your guy, fuck you too. Direct quote from Paul Heyman.
It's unfortunate that we now have to look at him in that light.
I mean, I grew up watching the Attitude Era, and he was a staple during that time, and yeah.
I grew up watching him during the Monday Night Wars, the wars between him and Eddie and WCW. And him and Ray, him and Dean Malenko.
He changed the game for smaller wrestlers. He's part of that group that you give credit to for changing the game for guys that aren't 6'2", 270, 80 pounds.
Yeah.
But
it also, in reality of it, and this was one of the things they really brought up in Dark Side of the Ring, is that really changed the game as well on how concussions are viewed in wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
That was what forced the change. So it sucks, but
it is what it is.
Yep.
This next one was fucking crazy to me. The Cleveland Browns have renamed their stadium the Cleveland Browns Stadium. This comes off the heels of a resolution passed back in June calling for the removal of First Energy Stadium. Called for removing the name due to First Energy being involved in a bribery scheme that saw them net $1 billion $1 billion
words are hard.
They are for its local nuclear power plant. Cleveland Browns are currently the only team in the NFL without a corporate sponsor for their stadium.
There was another team recently that was like that too, where they didn't have a sponsor for their stadium. I can't remember who it was. I feel like there was another team. I think it might have actually been the Browns before First Energy came in.
Yeah, well, First Energy was only their sponsor, I believe, for 8 years.
Yeah, it wasn't long. So, and of course, we see changes of like sponsorships on stadiums all the time.
The Steelers going from Heinz to Acrisure. It's Heinz Field.
Yeah, it's always going to be Heinz Field. Yeah,
always.
Or what was it? The Sun Dome becoming Camping World Stadium. I mean, that's not really. They don't really play in Orlando that much, but that's still a thing. That was another name change on a stadium. It happens.
Or
the Chargers.
How about when we? Go ahead.
The Chargers was another one when they changed to Qualcomm. That was a change.
Yep. Or when Dallas opened up Jerry World, we went from Texas Stadium to AT&T Stadium.
Yep. Well, that's different. That's building an all-new stadium. And you built it with that AT&T money. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And our final note for the week.
Not the final. I added an extra one in there. It's okay.
I just saw the last one. It's literally under the bars.
Oh, yeah. I put it in the wrong place. But I'll talk about that when it happens. Yeah. We could both talk about this one. So we get a message. We get tagged on Facebook by our buddy Josh. Shouts out to him. Of course. And he was basically letting us know, John Hennigan, Johnny Promotion himself, actually made
Johnny Promotion.
That's how I would call him. That's how I started calling him, was Johnny Promotion.
That's a good one.
Johnny Impact, Johnny Mundo, Johnny Nitro, Johnny Elite. Well, he wasn't on Nitro, but I mean, still, all the different.
It was called John.
Yeah, John Morrison, obviously. Anyways, he made his boxing debut at Creator Clash 2. Now, are you familiar with the Creator Clash series at all?
Am now, but I was not.
I think the original one was was where KSI originally fought. That was the first one. I am more. I gotta give my personal shout out. I really got into Creator Clash because I'm a huge Game Grumps fan as well. And Aaron Hansen, of course, made his boxing debut. He won his first match this week. Let's go. But more importantly, in our realm, John Hennigan scores a third-round KO against Epic Mealtime Man himself, Harley Morgenstein.
If I had $1 for every time people told me I looked like the Epic Mealtime guy when they were popular, I have a lot of money.
I was about to say you can't compare that to your bartending money. Let's be real. But
no, I could.
But
I can't. But actually, because you know how my beard used to be a lot bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Like I used to get. I was like, people used to walk up. You ever see Epic Mealtime? Like, yeah, dude.
The number of times we would be like I'd be at the bar like while we were working, and people would come in and say that because of course you worked at a chicken wing spot, so like. Naturally, then everyone starts putting it. Oh, you ever seen Epic Mealtime? It's like, yeah, no, we know. Meanwhile, we're sitting here with our all-you-can-eat wings. Like,
I will say on our show the same thing I said in response to Josh. John Morrison should be the dude whose favorite food is bacon.
That's fair. Also of note, Hacksaw Jim Duggan actually walked out to the ring with him.
Nice.
And I thought this was fun. Morgenstein actually entered the ring through the crowd like he was in the Shield, which I feel like was some kind of call out. And then another note as well, and this is separate from that match. Are you familiar with Nathan Barnett? He's a famous YouTuber. Recently started calling himself Dad. He got his second win, and he calls out Seth Rollins after his round 1 victory.
Seth ain't doing anything right now, and WWE doesn't know what to do with him. That's why he comes out, plays his theme song, and leaves.
I feel like he's got something coming. Again, they're just stalling time until next year when he can main event Mania with Roman. They're just stalling time. Nostradamus, I'm calling it. And our final note, this was actually something I had to add last minute because this happened last night. I'm sitting here. I had gotten home from the concert I was at because it was a local show that ended at like 9, so I was like, I had time to come home and cook dinner and everything. And I'm sitting on my computer, I'm surfing around, and I get a gift sub on Twitch to the Great Black Otaku. Do you know who that is? Dio Madden, or now known as Masse. And I tune in, and it's Masse and Mansoir basically doing their own episode of Ride Along. And they're just shooting the shit, and it's like them. They're like just saying things out of pocket about, oh yeah, we can we say this online now? Now that we're back to our Twitch lives and everything, it was just fun to see. It was like watching an episode of Ride Along. Like I tuned in for a little bit. They had Maxine in the backseat. She's like originally trying to ignore them. She's like, I don't want to be part of this, and they slowly get her into it. Next thing you know, Dawkins gets in the car, and I don't know if he was in the car the entire time or whatnot, but Dawkins is sitting in the back seat as well, just sitting here, and like all they keep talking about, like literally every word out of his mouth is Lakers in 5, Lakers in 5, Lakers in 5. And they're like, the Lakers lost to the Kings tonight, right? All right, Lakers in 6. Nah, still Lakers in 5. Lakers in 5.
Say they could.
It made me miss Ride Along. That's all. That's all it really came to it. It's just like I missed Ride Along, but it's also seeing a return to WWE stars.
Yeah.
On their own deals. Like
Lakers won, by the way. They beat the Grizzlies.
Oh, I thought they played the Kings. I don't know. Somebody was saying that they had to face. Well, they were talking about how they had to face the Kings, and like. Overtime. I don't know. I haven't been paying attention to the playoffs in the NBA. I don't really watch NBA. You know that for a while. For the record, I'm not really familiar with the NBA. I watch a game every now and again, especially during the playoffs. I don't keep up. I'm keep up more with college basketball than I do pro basketball. If we're being honest. I just
Kings are up on Golden State 1-0, and they're leading right now.
Okay, and then the Lakers, like you said, they beat the Grizzlies. But it was just funny that while I was watching, Docs was on there, just kept going, Lakers in 5. Lakers, and Chat's sitting here yelling at him, and he's just like, nope, Lakers in 5. Just how it is. I don't know. I thought it was funny.
It's good to see WWE stars back on Twitch.
Yes. Of course, I mean, I am on Twitch. Y'all can follow me at the D Burns Show. You see my at. Feel free. I usually shoot the shit. I'm actually probably going to be starting 2K23 soon. I have it. I just haven't started it.
Let me know. We got to figure something out for.
We got to figure out something for our my GM. I still want to get Brian involved on that, make it a 3-way, or find somebody to make it 4. I don't know. We'll have to get there at some point. But that's gonna do it for us this week. That covers everything that we had. Next week, of course, we're gonna be having to talk about the end of the XFL regular season. We'll have to talk USFL. We'll have to talk preparations for the draft. I guarantee there's gonna be things that come up. It's gonna be the week. It's gonna be the week before It's gonna be 2 days before the draft. So we're gonna be doing all our preparations for that. Will we have time for a mock draft? I don't know. Maybe. We'll see what the
Depends on the news.
We'll see. Like originally we were going to talk about what we were going to do it this week, and then we just kind of got bombarded by news. I kind of spent too much time watching minor league football.
It will help you this weekend, I promise.
It's all good. It's whatever. But yeah, that's going to do it for us this week. Make sure you leave a like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, all that stuff. Follow us on Twitter at the D Burns Show, at Bobby Boomerang. I know you don't use Twitter as much. One of these days it will change. Just like when I finally got you to start using Reddit. One of these days I'm gonna get you to start using Twitter more. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
Get there.
That's a true story, by the way. I had to coerce him into using Reddit. And now, do you even still
every day?
Every day? Yep.
Every day.
You're on Reddit more than me then these days.
Probably. Yeah. I literally every day.
Yeah. That's gonna do it for us though.
Appreciate you guys. Yeah. See y'all next week.
Much appreciated. Stay tuned for next week. We'll be back. Same bat time, same bat channel. Till then, peace out.